The dusk-colored waters of Blackwater Bay lay oddly placid beneath a winter sky drained of all warmth, as if the narrow sea itself held its breath. On the tidewatch parapet of the rebuilt Red Keep, Queen Cersei Lannister stared northward, fingertips resting upon the ice-chilled stone. Her lions fluttered on golden banners overhead, yet felt somehow remote. Relics of a summer that had slipped away, the instant white ravens had arrived from every corner of the realm. When Jaime had first urged her to parley with the Northern King, she had laughed, sharp and brittle as blown glass. But then Qyburn's black cells yielded reports that even he dared whisper. Entire keeps lost in a single night, Dreadfort's fields glittering with corpses rhymed in hoarfrost, a stretch of the King's Road clogged by travelers frozen in mid-stride. What good were castles when their defenders turned to ice? What use had she for a throne carved of melted swords if winter itself forged an army with every corpse it touched? Your Grace. Sir Gregor's gravelled voice drifted at her back. Maester Caron requests audience. News from White Harbor. She. Bendem Sawar. Cersei smoothed the curl of pale hair curling free of its jeweled cage, and motioned him forward. The maester, draped in a stained gray cloak, bowed so deeply the links of his chain clacked like shifting armor. A white raven arrived an hour past, he said, producing a roll of vellum sealed in dirty wax. From Lady Arya Stark, though she styles herself Princess Arya now, in her brother's name. Cold wind teased the loose hairs at Cersei's temple. Read it. The maester broke the seal with trembling fingers. To Queen Cersei of House Lannister, protector of the realm. Winterfell stands, but the dead do not falter. King Jon bids one last embassy before the snows close every pass. He offers terms, an alliance of armies, dragonglass from Dragonstone, mined under northern oversight, and in return, Caron swallowed, pledges that the North shall remain free after the war is won. Cersei's lashes flickered. Freedom? The North had tasted that poison before, raising stark wolves against her son, costing him crown, hand, and life. Yet the memory of Tommen's trusting smile had lost its sting. She had made peace with ghosts, except perhaps her own. Right, Princess Arya, this, she said. The Crown acknowledges the threat. The Crown proposes a council at Harrenhal in one moon's turn. All lords sworn to either throne may attend, but they shall bring maesters, not soldiers, no more than 10 guards each, and no deerwolves. We will forge terms on neutral ground or not at all. Caron bowed again and left. Sir Gregor's shadow fell over her, monstrous as ever, but she felt no safer for it. North of the neck marched a calamity that cared nothing for lions or mountains. Even Gregor, animated by Qyburn's hideous arts, would crumble beneath that otherworldly chill. Jon Snow claimed dragonfire might stop them, yet Daenerys Targaryen had vanished beyond the narrow seas, chasing whispers of kin and kingdom. No dragons answered any horn in Westeros. It would fall, then, to mortal queens and mortal blades. The great hall at Harrenhal still stank of smoked stone and ash after half a century, as if the ghosts of Aegon's dragons circled invisibly overhead. Beneath the charred rafters more banners congregated than any tourney had seen since the conquest. White direwolves, golden lions, gray krakens, green cranes of House Crakehall, even the flayed man of a chastened house, Bolton fluttering beside River Run's red trout. Winter carved a thin breath from every mouth, for no hearth burned. Both sides had agreed no fire should disguise the chill of truth. Cersei entered swathed in a mantle of crimson fox, flanked by Jaime, minus the gold demi-lion that had marked him for captaincy, and silent Sir Gregor. Her footfalls echoed like dropped coins in a crypt. Across the soot-streaked flagstones waited Jon Snow, unassuming in dark wool and studded leather, Lady Sansa at his right, Arya at his left. Between them, Brienne of Tarth stood like a marble sentinel. The Northerners bowed stiffly. "Your Grace," Jon greeted, voice husky with wear. "Thank you for coming." She inclined her head just enough to recognize the courtesy, but not the supplication. "Your summons left scant room for refusal, King Jon." She let the honorific linger, both olive branch and warning. Speak your terms. Jon's gray eyes flicked toward Cleburne's face, then back. Dragonglass mines at Dragonstone will be manned jointly. We send stonemasons and miners. You provide galleys and guards. Princess Arya commands 10,000 spearmen beyond the neck. Lady Sansa raises 5,000 from the Vale through Lord Baelish. A dark smile crossed Sansa's lips at the mention of Baelish, one that unsettled Cersei more than Gregor's silence. We ask the crown to dispatch equal forces, no less than 15,000. To Winterfell. You will swear before the assembled lords that no southern army will march north of Moat Cailin, save for this purpose. Now Winter. And afterward? Cersei's voice, as cool as the flagstones. Once these dead are defeated, the north remains self-ruled, Jon said. But we keep open trade, grain for timber, iron for wool, ships for ore, a realm divided in banners but not in purpose. Cersei's lips curved. Whether it was smile or sneer, none could say. She turned, sweeping the hall with lioness gaze. You ask me to relinquish half of Westeros to wolves, krakens, and crows. Yet you offer only the hope my throne survives at all. Thou. She stepped closer until they stood almost shoulder to shoulder, measured him with the same eyes she once turned on Robert and Stannis, fools who believed crowns were gifted, not taken. Convince me. Jon held her gaze. Because the dead are coming, your grace. They will not kneel, and they will not cede. They have no sons to ransom, no daughters to wed. They want only silence. Silence eternal across every keep from Dorne to the Wall. If you fight us, you thin our lines. You break the living before the dead ever draw near. Then himself. He paused, took a slow breath. I never wished to be king. I was named because the North needed a voice louder than fear. You too must decide whether your voice will stand with life or echo in the halls of nothing. For a moment, the hall hushed so completely, one could hear ravens shifting on melted window ledges, hear the ancient bones of Harrenhal settling around them. Then Cersei exhaled. Very well, she said, every word like clipped parchment. 15,000 men. Provisioned, armed, and sworn to your cause. In exchange, I require unbroken grain levy from the Reach once the snows thaw, and the Riverlands shall pay double tithe for harboring rebels. Then, Sansa's blue gaze sharpened. The Riverlands bled for both sides in 2 wars not of their choosing. They will not endure another yoke. Cersei raised a brow. Then perhaps they will prefer the cold embrace of your whites. Enough. Jon's voice cracked like frost. We will not bargain with lives as coin. We will sign equal levies, in food, in coin, in men, when spring returns. Until then, no realm owes another anything, save fidelity to breath and heartbeat. Queen and king faced one another, lioness and wolf, amber and iron, 2 souls unwilling to bend yet, tasked to forge a single blade. Jaime shifted uneasily. Brienne's gauntleted hand rested on the pommel of her sword. Cersei nodded once. So be it. The alliance stands. On my honor, such as remains. She extended a gloved hand. Jon pressed his bare palm to hers. The hall seemed to inhale around them. One breath. Shared. 2 weeks later, the crown's host marched through Maidenpool, banners snapping crimson and gold above a sea of steel helms gleaming pale beneath wan sun. Randall Tarley commanded the vanguard. His bastard son, Dickon, rode beside him, grim as a man twice his years. Behind, rows of wagons rattled with barrels of lamp oil, Quarles and Clyburn's newest design, clay jars of green liquid thicker than wildfire yet stable until lit. The Grand Maester swore it would burn even on snow. Though he would not name it nor swear, it bore no spark of sorcery. Cersei cared little. Cheaper than dragons, and under her command. Atop a limestone bluff, overlooking the Blackwater rush, Jaime rained honor and waited for his sister. Cersei rode astride a white courser, lion crest gleaming on her breastplate, Lannister gold over mail of folded steel. She had insisted on marching herself. A queen who sends others to die for her crown invites subjects to doubt it, she'd told the court. And winter is no season for doubt. Jaime leaned toward her as she drew abreast. 3 ravens arrived this morning. One from River Run. Lord Edmure confirms he rides with 2,000 archers. Second from Old Town. Maester Gorman has shipped every dragonglass candelabra, bowl, and candlestick the Citadel could find. And third, he frowned, from Dragonstone. The mines have struck a chamber. Reports say the walls are carved into steps, spiral, descending deeper than torches reach. Old as Valyria, maybe older. A thrill traced Cersei's spine. Secrets beneath Dragonstone? The world felt vaster by the day, as though long slumbering lore now roused to greet the storm. Dispatch Qyburn, she ordered. At once. Let him plumb those depths. And if they hold dragons sleeping, tell him to rouse them. Bens. Jaime laughed, a dry rasp. Dragons bound in rock? You'd make a Targaryen of yourself. I'd make a queen who lives, nothing more. North of the Twins, the land narrowed to a white throat, where the King's Road vanished beneath drifts taller than a man. Patrols hacked through wind-packed barriers, clearing just wide enough for wagons while axes rang like church bells. Every step forward came at the cost of flesh. Frostbite claimed digits, ears, souls. Still, they pressed on, for behind them marched Knights of the Crown, and before them dire necessity. At Winterfell's ramparts, torches burned blue beneath swirling snow, casting the castle in a shimmering aura. Crows nested on roofs heavy with hoarfrost, their caws muffled by whirling flakes. Jon Snow welcomed the southern host upon the old god's wood, where a single weirwood twisted scarlet against white sky. He knelt before no one. Yet he bowed head in respect as Cersei dismounted. "Welcome, your grace," he said. "You arrived before the Fell Day." "Fell Day," Cersei repeated. "A superstition." Sansa swept forward in sable furs. "Every moon the wind stills for one night. They say the dead march fastest then. Our scouts saw their fires, if fires they are, moving across shivering sea ice 3 nights past." Cersei eyed her shrewdly. Once she dismissed the eldest Stark girl as a doll in wolf's clothing. Now Sansa moved like a queen who'd survived dragon's fire. Grief and cunning fused in every step, and Cersei found herself respecting, even admiring the younger woman. "Then we have little time," she said. "Show me your defenses." They toured Winterfell by torchlight. Soldiers hammered iron spikes into ramparts, over which archers tested new quarrels of dragonglass. Qyburn's fire jars were stored in the granary, buried beneath straw. Randall Tarley oversaw their distribution, snarling at any hedge knight who handled them improperly. Smiths coated spear tips in pitch, mixed with powdered obsidian that bit skin if inhaled. They named the concoction Night's Bane. Atop the east wall, Jon gestured toward a dark expanse where only whirling snow could be seen. "Hardhome lies that way. We evacuated every living soul 2 moons past, yet the dead's torches returned last night. By sunrise, they will cross the White Knife." "Nantor." Cersei narrowed her eyes, searching the darkness. "How many?" "Tens of thousands," said a deep voice behind them. Tormund Giantsbane loomed, beard crusted in icicles. "More than all you Southron folk could slaughter in a song, but fewer than before. The Night King spends bodies like copper coins carving his road to Winterfell. We've burned what corpses we could reach." At the mention of burning, Jaime shifted. "Wildfire," he murmured. "Should we?" Qyburn, who had arrived unseen, shook his head. "Our fire jars burn hotter than wildfire yet leave smoke black as midnight. Dragons may find the White Walkers more vulnerable in fire's glare. But for men the soot steals breath. Not unless we stand upon the threshold." "Then we pray the threshold holds," Jon said. Snow whirled round him like spectral wings, and sharpened every sword. The eve of battle dawned not with sunrise but gray mid-light, clouded, as though the sun itself hid behind thicker veil. Wind stilled. Flakes fell in lazy spirals that melted on skin yet crusted armor. On Winterfell's walls, every banner drooped soaked and heavy, colors dim beneath ice. Atop the battlements Jaime stood with Brienne, both encased in steel stilling their breath into plumes. Where once tension between them had sparked like flint, now an easy silence reigned, born of long roads and longer regrets. "You should stand with Sansa," Jaime said quietly. Brienne shook her head. "Her place is behind the walls. Mine is here. I keep my oaths." He smiled, rueful. "Even the one to Catelyn Stark." The Lady Knight's eyes glimmered. "Especially that one." She gazed over snowy fields. "If I die today, it will be for the living, not the lions or wolves who claim them." Jaime felt warmth stir beneath cold plate. For the first time in years he saw a future beyond red silk chambers and poisoned cups. He touched the leather strap securing his golden hand. In its cold gleam he saw a man reborn. Trumpets blared. Far along the tree line dark shapes emerged, first like ants upon snow, then taller, broader, marching in perfect silence. The dead. They did not clash shields nor bellow war cries. Only the hush of falling snow accompanied their approach. And above them, on skeletal steed, cloaked in rime, rode the Night King, sapphire eyes burning with chill purpose. Jon raised Longclaw, its bastard's blade lined now with dragonglass edges hammered by Gendry Baratheon himself. "Archers," he bellowed. Black-fletched shafts hissed into the sky, streaked flame trailing green-tinged oil. When they fell among the front ranks, corpses shattered like porcelain, dragonglass fragments piercing skulls. But for every frozen soldier that crumpled, 2 more climbed over. Their dead eyes reflected Winterfell's torches in miniature flickers, as if tiny stars were snuffed in their sockets. Behind the lines Randyll Tarly ordered the cavalry. Knights of the Reach spurred forth in disciplined wedges, lances glinting obsidian. They struck the enemy flank, smashing bones to powder. Yet the ground beneath them churned with hands clawing upward. The slain reckoned, seizing stirrups, dragging riders screaming into the drifts. Horses panicked, hooves fracturing on ice. On the battlements, Qyburn released his jars. Arcing green streaks burst above the field, raining disparate tongues of emerald flame that hissed on snow, but devoured whites in roiling torrents. The heat-seared stone, illuminating the Night King's host in hellish contrast. Bodies blackened to ash, the stench of burning sinew overwhelming. But still, the dead advanced. In the Godswood, Cersei watched flames rise higher than ramparts. Arya crouched beside her slit trench of oil, torch in hand, gray eyes fixed on a lone figure weaving through the chaos. Theon Greyjoy, his ironborn axe splintering whites as he cleared a corridor toward the south gate. He brandished a horn of dragonsteel, rumored to summon ancient fires. Whether such tales held truth mattered not. Bravery itself shaped legends. Cersei felt something stir, an ache akin to pride, yet foreign, uncomfortable. All her life loyalty had meant payment owed, never freely offered. Here men and women died for a realm that might brand them traitor tomorrow, and did so smiling. A thunderclap split the sky. No storm cloud birthed it. Rather, the Night King had hurled a spear of dendritic ice that lanced through the battlements, scattering masonry like toys. Screams rang below as the wall sagged. Jaime sprinted along the parapet's edge, Brienne at his side. Together, they shoved support beams back into place, bracing stones that weighed a dozen men. Snow, slick with blood, caked their gauntlets. "Push!" Brienne roared, veins bulging. Jaime set his golden hand to the beam. Metal bit wood, but did not yield. It held, barely. Then the Night King's second spear struck. Stone erupted in shards. Jaime felt himself lifted, flung, then weightless. He slammed into ice, pain lancing his shoulder. Vision blurred. For a moment, he saw the stars of the Seven swirl above, cold and indifferent. Shapes loomed, whites scrambling over the shattered wall. Winterfell was breached. He staggered to one knee, sword lost. A dead girl in torn furs lunged, eyes black pits. Jaime braced to fend her off with his metal hand, but steel flashed. Brienne cleaved the white in half, goreless, brittle, before hauling Jaime upright. "The gate!" she shouted, voice hoarse. They ran. Within the courtyard chaos reigned. Sansa shepherded washerwomen toward the crypts, while Tyrion, half-draped in furs, flung ceramic orbs of wildfire from atop a wagon. Flames leapt like emerald serpents, but with every flash the dead poured thicker through the ragged breach. Cersei arrived astride her courser, blood splattering the mare's pale mane. She wore an archer's gorget, but no helm. Her golden hair whipped a bloody halo, drawing a Lannister crossbow. She knelt on the stones, resting the prod upon severed headless shoulders for leverage. Aural of petrified weirwood slid into groove. She aimed at the mounted figure beyond the breach, the Night King. The world narrowed to shaft and eye. She exhaled. She fired. The bolt flew true, straight as any arrow Queen Rhaenys had loosed in songs. It caught the Night King in the chest and shattered into dust, splinters fluttering like snowflakes. The undead monarch scarcely faltered. He turned his gaze upon Cersei, empty and eternal, and raised a hand. A fresh wind blew across the courtyard, as cold as the grave. Dead men lifted from where they'd burned, green fire still guttering in their sockets. Cersei's heart stumbled. She tasted copper on her tongue. Fall back. Jon howled from the tower stairs. To the gods' wood. Sansa's command rose beside his. Archers to the second wall, all others to the heart tree. Now. The living retreated in ragged lines, through narrow passages. Only they knew. Arya guided Cersei by the elbow through a hidden door beneath the broken first keep. Behind them, Jaime and Brienne slashed closing whites, steel shrieking on bones. They broke into the gods' wood. Snow lay unbroken here, pristine around the heart tree's crimson leaves. Torches fixed to iron brackets cast flickering halos. In the center, Bran Stark waited, wheeled in a carved weirwood chair, eyes white as milk. Lost, warging ravens far above, guiding dragonglass hawks to blind ice giants along outer walls. Cersei halted, breath pluming. Jon stood before his brother, Longclaw's pommel resting at the ready. The dead fear the old god's roots, he said to her. They will come, but slowly. We must hold until dawn. No, Bran whispered, voice half elsewhere. Not dawn. Hold until the horn. What horn? Jaime gasped. The last horn of Joramun, Bran murmured. Lost to men buried beneath Dragonstone. Qyburn's miners broke its tomb. They ride now with sand and wind behind them. Cersei's pulse thundered. She remembered his report of steps spiraling into darkness. Her idle jest about dragons roused. Perhaps deeper still lay older wonders. What does this horn do? It wakes giants in the earth, Bran said, and suddenly his pupils returned, blue irises sharp. Or so the tales warn. We will learn whether tales are truth. Shouts erupted at the clearing's edge. The whites found the break in walls. Knights under Tarly formed a shield wall, obsidian blade tips protruding between interlocked shields. Gregor Clegane waited before them. Sweeping a massive obsidian-edged greatsword Qyburn had forged from a broken scythe. Each stroke cleaved 3 whites who burst to scree. Yet for every swing, more pressed. Gregor bled black ichor from rents in his armor, but fought on like some revenant twin of their enemy. Bolts from crossbows sung overhead, striking white walkers who shattered in crystal sprays. When one fell, a dozen whites collapsed with it. Arya darted through gaps like a shadow, blade dancing silver lights. She leapt, spun, severed joints. Each kill thinned the tide. But time slowed, each heartbeat heavier, each breath a labor. Cersei fired bolt after bolt. Her arms trembled from strain. Jaime limped to her side, crimson soaking his greaves. Still the fiercest archer in Westeros, he rasped. She risked a crooked smile. Save the flattery until we drink. A distant rumble stole their attention, a tremor that shivered through roots beneath their boots, faint yet rising. Bran's face lifted to unseen skies. They have blown the horn, he murmured. Twice. 1 blast for men, 2 for whites, 3 will break the wall, but 4. His gaze fixed Cersei. 4 wakes stone. On the horizon, the Night King raised his spear a second time. He would strike the heart of Winterfell, end the dream of dawn with one throw. The tremor became roar. From south of Winterfell, a plume of crushed rock erupted as though some beast burrowed beneath. The ground rippled, towers quaked. The stone giant awoke. It rose. Dark basalt formed in rough semblance of a man, 30 feet high, eyes aglow with molten light. It hauled itself from earth's womb, roaring with ancient pain. Snow steamed on its obsidian skin. Veins of lava traced cracks glowing orange. Qyburn's Folly, Maester's legend, brought forth by a Valyrian horn older than men's memory. The dead turned as one, drawn by its heat. The giant strode across the battlefield, leaving melted furrows. Every step crushed whites to sparkling shards. The Night King hurled his ice spear, but upon the giant's chest it hissed and evaporated. A roar like grinding mountains shook the air. The giant stooped, scooped whites in molten hands, flinging them skyward where they combusted mid-air. For the first time the undead host faltered. And in that stuttered breath, Arya sprinted across fallen branches, launching herself off Gregor's bent shield, sailing over ranks of whites. In mid-leap she drew a dragon-glassed knife from her belt, flipped grip downwards, ice shards of memory glittering in her wake. She landed upon the Night King's steed behind him, buried the blade beneath the plate at his nape before his frost could stiffen. The Night King stiffened, cracked, and shattered into 1,000 blue splinters. All across Winterfell whites collapsed, strings severed. Silence fell heavier than snow. Dawn broke, pale and bashful, searching timidly over Winterfell's ruins. Smoke drifted purple where wildfire still smoldered. Men moved like dreamers, stamping feet to test reality. Maesters tended wounds, counting living versus dead. Among them, Cersei limped, cloak torn, cheeks streaked with soot. She found Jon at the battlements, staring north beyond where the trees still glistened with frost. "It is done," she said. "For now," he replied. "Others may rise, but today we live." She followed his gaze. The basalt giant knelt amid snow, cooled now to dark slag. Steam rose like prayer. "Your horn cost us more ruin than 10 sieges," she murmured. "And saved us all the same." "Not my horn," Jon said. "Yours. You sent Qyburn." She looked at him sharply. "Then we share the blame. And the honor." A slow exhale fogged before her lips. "Your north is free, King Jon. I will name it in council. But understand, the realm shattered once in my lifetime. I will not see it fracture again into petty kingdoms." Jon nodded. "Nor will I. A free north, yes, but bound to the south in alliance. Bound by memory of this night." She extended a hand. Jon clasped it. Fingers, once gloved in silk and greed, now bore soot and blood and truth. She felt the heat of life pulse there. Behind them, Jaime walked with Brienne, his golden hand glinting in new sun. Sansa directed cranes lifting broken stones, while Arya stood before the heart tree, wiping her blade clean. The realm's fate now lay among these unlikely comrades. Cersei closed her eyes. She imagined Tommen's laugh echo through Winterfell's windy halls, imagined Joffrey's sneer replaced by a future king's kinder smile. Perhaps she might yet shape a realm where children did not bear sins of parents, where summers could begin anew. Winter had not ended. Snow still feathered from pewter sky, but for the first time in memory, the cold carried promise rather than dread. And promise, Cersei knew, was a seed hardier than any frost. "Ah, kai, ni, ai, bin, ah." Morning lingered in pale silence over Winterfell, a hush so complete that it felt as if the wall itself had crept south to wrap the castle in its vast white cloak. Smoke coiled from shattered ramparts, carrying the tang of burning resin and the grim sweetness of charred bone. But the wind had calmed, and the blizzard had spent its fury. Inside the yard, men moved softly among the fallen, stacking corpses in neat rows. Whites, then the brave, then the half-burned who might yet be saved by poultice or prayer. They spoke in low voices, exchanging nods and murmured thanks, as though wary of disturbing the fragile truce between breath and stillness that reigned over the dead ground. Cersei watched from the balcony above the great hall, arms folded inside a spare stark cloak Sansa had pressed upon her. The fur smelled of pine and smoke. It was too heavy, too rough, but warmth mattered more than vanity in this strangled dawn. Her palms traced the coarse weave as she studied the churned snowscape where the Night King had fallen. It was already difficult to imagine the undead host that had filled the courtyard only hours ago. Meltwater pooled in black hollows, seeping into joints where arrowheads of dragonglass glimmered, half buried. Nothing in King's Landing had prepared her for this, neither wildfire nor riots, nor the faint recollection of dragons soaring above the Red Keep. Here the horror had been intimate, clawing. And here, of all places, she had felt a spark she had not known since the madness of Robert's rebellion. A cause larger than her narrow hunger for power. Behind her, the great door creaked, and Jaime entered, bareheaded and unarmored, except for a battered gorget. Dried blood had cracked in the seams of his leather, but his step was firm, his eyes ice-clear in the slanted light. He joined her without greeting, resting his elbows on the frost-slick stone. "They have begun tallying," he said after a breath. "Just under 3,000 Northerners lost. 2,000 Reachmen, 800 Riverlords, 700 from the Vale. Half Quieburn's stock of fire jars spent. As for our lions," his mouth twisted, 1,500. "Fewer than I feared." "Dandy." Cersei nodded. "And the enemy?" "All?" Jaime said. "Every shard. No White Walkers remain, Bran says. The magic that bound them is broken." Her gaze brushed the godswood, where the basalt giant still knelt in silence, shoulders hunched in a posture of exhaustion or grief. A ring of blackened snow surrounded the molten footprints it had left, as though the world had puckered beneath its heat. Small folk whispered already that the creature contained the spirits of the first men, or that the children of the forest had carved it from obsidian and buried it ages ago in preparation for this single task. Truth mattered less than the terror it inspired, and the hope. "Has Qyburn pried its secrets yet?" she asked. "He prowls the perimeter with chisels and vials," Jaime said, half a laugh beneath his breath. "Bran thinks it will cool to inert rock once the last rivulets of lava harden. Qyburn hopes to break off fragments for study. The men keep their distance. Even Giantsbane. Betty. They will not thank us for conjuring demons," Cersei murmured. "They will thank you for living," Jaime replied. "And for letting them live." For a long heartbeat, they shared silence. Brother and sister, queen and lord, survivors haunted by memories no minstrel would dare sing. Cersei wondered how the realm would remember this dawn, as the victory of wolves and lions together, or merely the moment one nightmare ended so that lesser torments could resume. She had learned long ago that victories sour quickly in the mouths of those who have lost kin. Steps scuffed on the stair behind them. Sansa Stark emerged, cheeks pink from the cold, a sheaf of parchment in hand. She inclined her head to Cersei, the gesture poised yet not servile. "We convene in the great hall within the hour, Your Grace," she said. "King Jon has asked all commanders to attend." She handed one parchment roll to Jaime, another to Cersei. "Casualty ledgers. Maester Walken would have them read into record." Cersei tucked the roll beneath her arm. "I will attend." She studied Sansa's face. The girl she had once known was gone, leaving a woman carved of winter and quiet fire. "My condolences, Lady Sansa. You lost many good men." Sansa's lips pressed together. "We lost men and women," she corrected softly. "But yes, and thank you." Her eyes searched Cersei's as if tasting sincerity, finding it unfamiliar but not unwelcome. "We'll see them honored, all of them, together." When she had gone, Jaime exhaled. Stronger than her mother. "Sharper too," Cersei said. "If we break faith, she'll bury us beneath this snow before summer's first bud." "Then let's not break faith," Jaime said, and left her to contemplate an unfamiliar sensation thrumming beneath her ribs, unease threaded with respect, and a trace of cautious admiration. The great hall had never felt more aptly named. Long tables stood end to end down the length of the chamber, some upright, some patched with salvaged planks where undead had crashed through in the night. The lords sat shoulder to shoulder according to no house order. Manderleys beside Tarlis, Crakehals wedged between Glovers and Karstarks, Krakens opposite Riverland's Trout. At the high table, Bran Stark's carved chair had been placed beside Jon's simple oaken seat, and between them a third had been drawn up. A stout lion-backed throne hurriedly assembled from the remains of an old siege ladder. Cersei recognized a subtle gift in that structure. It placed her equal, but not higher. She strode the aisle flanked by Jaime and Tyrion. The latter had reappeared from the cellars with streaks of soot still painting his brow. He carried a goblet that smelled faintly of aquavit. Nearby, Arya perched on the lip of a table, one knee drawn up, sharpening a dagger for no purpose but habit. Tormund sprawled on a bench gnawing a smoked haunch of elk. Ghost, Jon's red-eyed direwolf, padded among the press, accepting gentle pats and shying from spurs. Jon rose as Cersei approached. He looked fever-worn, but his voice carried. "My lords and ladies," he began, "will greet the dawn alive. Last night, we broke the power of the Night King. We owe that life not to one banner but to all, and to the sacrifices of strangers who stood the wall with us." Nods and a murmur of assent rippled down the chamber. Jon continued, "But victory on the field is not peace. We face battered walls, empty granaries, and wounds that will fester in the cold. We face the same rivalries that nearly tore the realm apart before the dead descended. And we face new questions. Who leads? Who pays? Who rebuilds?" He gestured toward Cersei. Queen Cersei Lannister marched farther north than any southern monarch since Aegon the Conqueror. Her armies bled for us. Now we must decide what shape the realm will take. Men decide. All eyes shifted to her. Cersei inhaled, tasting hearth smoke upon the air. "The crown came north to preserve the living," she said. "That purpose endures. But King's Landing has scars of its own. Food stores emptied by winter levies, fleets scattered by storms, coffers pledged to foreign banks. I will pledge grain from the Reach, Unspring endorses it, but I will require guarantees. Trade routes through White Harbor exempt from duties for a generation. Half the silver mined in the hills of Norvos, shared with us by treaty, will fund northern reconstruction, so long as equal value in timber and iron flows south." She paused, letting murmurs rise then settle. "And I stand by my oath. The North shall be ruled by its own. But the North will also swear mutual defense with the crown. An enemy to one is enemy to all." Lord Glover banged a fist on the table. "And if your southern rivals test your throne, Queen, will you call us to bleed again for Lannister's quarrels?" "If I entangle the realm in folly," Cersei answered, "you may refuse the levy. You have my word, and the word of the council." She glanced at Jon. Jon nodded slowly. "I accept these terms." So did Tyrion. He sipped, then coughed into his sleeve, perhaps dizzy with the knowledge that for the first time in years, his voice helped weave unity rather than unravel it. The hall erupted in small applause, frayed, low, yet earnest. Bran's face showed no flicker of expression, but his pale eyes fixed Cersei's with peculiar weight. In them, she glimpsed impossible memory, as though the boy, if he was still a boy, saw not just this moment but every thread of her life, every secret corridor of choice stretching before and behind. It unsettled her more than any threat. She inclined her head. He blinked, releasing her. Sansa rose. "We have other matters," she said. "Winterfell's cellars hold more dragon glass than we can shape in a year. Qyburn's wildfire stores are dwindling. Between them lies a weapon unmatched if forged properly. Flame-cast obsidian. We need smelters. We need coin. We need King's Landing's guilds." Bah! Cersei let her smile bloom. "We will send them north, though they may gasp at the cold. They will mind the wages more than the chill," Tyrion said. "A craftsman braves worse for half the promise." Manderly guffawed. Others followed. The tension loosened another notch. Then a horn blast rolled across the hall. One beat, solemn, from the outer ramparts. Not the thin war horn note of last night, but a deeper boom, as though echoing from within the earth. Conversation stilled. Every warrior's hand found steel by instinct. A guard burst through the rear doors. Snow powdered his helm. "Ship on the shivering sea," he shouted. Winged sails, black on gray. A kraken snarling. Cersei stiffened. Euron Greyjoy. Jon's brows furrowed. "How many masts?" The guard gulped. "One only, your grace." Hoists a flag white as frost. A parley sign. Tyrion's mouth twitched. "Euron? Suing for peace?" He must have lost his mind or his fleet. Perhaps both. But Cersei remembered the last raven dispatched to King's Landing. News of Euron's sudden withdrawal from Slaver's Bay with 50-odd ships laden with spice and gold. She had assumed he meant to circle Dorne and blockade Old Town. Now the kraken unfurled in northern waters. "We greet him on the jetty," Jon said. "If he's alone, we talk. If not, we torch his decks." "I will come," Cersei said, and saw surprise ripple among the lords. "It was I who made him Captain Commander. I'll see how he repays the crown." The sky beyond the north gate stretched leaden, threatening another squall. At the water stair below Wintertown, sea ice had been hacked away to clear a berth. One longship bobbed, hull scarred, sail furled, figurehead of a kraken snaggle toothed in iron. Euron leapt the prow clad in black sealskin, a scabbard of pale leather slapping his thigh. Only 3 oarsmen followed, gaunt as straw scarecrows. He wore a rakish grin despite cheeks hollowed by hunger. "King Jon, Queen Cersei," he boomed. "By the drowned god, I arrived to find you wed-locked in icy love." His single good eye roved the crowd. "Where are the dragons, and the dead I was promised?" "They are ashes in the snow," Jon answered. "Snow melts." Euron flicked a speck of frost from his cuff. "So may alliance." He swaggered forward. Arrows followed him from the walls. "I bring a gift." He clapped, and one of his crew dragged a bundle onto the quay. Canvas soaked dark. Euron whipped it aside. A man lay bound, slashed tunic soaked crimson. His hair was silver white, face bruised, but unmistakable. "Viserys Targaryen," Euron announced. "The beggar king himself, found skulking in Qarth. I thought the realm might enjoy him." Shock rippled outward. Tyrion muttered a curse. Even Jaime's composure slipped. Viserys, whom many had believed dead for years, now bled on these planks. He moaned softly. "He claimed Daenerys sails west with 2 dragons," Euron continued. "But all Essos ports say the same. Dragons absent. She lost one above Far Valyria, burned to skeleton by storms of fire. The other vanished with her." He shrugged. "I doubted, so I took her brother. If she comes, we bargain. If not, he may amuse King's Landing cells." His grin widened at Cersei. "I require pardon for past mutinies, and a writ naming me Lord of the Stepstones, to carve my kingdom from pirates." Cersei held his gaze. Euron remained the same, a man shaped from chaos, craving spectacle and thrill above loyalty. Yet his longship was empty, his fleet lost. Useful as a foiled sword now. "I could kill you for rebellion," she said. He spread arms, laughing. "You could, if you desire another war. Or you could accept Viserys as a living pledge, and my sails flying your lion until summer warms these seas." Jon stepped forward. We barter royal claimants like poultry. His voice cut, brittle. The war is done. Let the man stand free. Free men plot, Euron said. Chains discourage that. He tapped Viserys' head with a gloved finger, eliciting a whimper. The Dragon Queen may come for him. Imagine your grace, the crown's leverage. Cersei's thoughts whirred. Daenerys with a single dragon posed threat, but also unpredictability. A living bargaining chip, worth more than Euron. But to hold a Targaryen prisoner so soon after victory risked fracturing fresh trust. She glanced at Jon. His scowl held accusation and plea. Sansa's face behind him read harder. She judged every Lannister decision against the ledger of Stark dead. Release him, Cersei said. Euron blinked. Pardon? I said release him. She stepped forward. Chains off. Let him stand. Viserys coughed, spitting blood. Euron hesitated, then knelt to cut the ropes. The Targaryens sagged, propped on trembling elbows. Cersei addressed him. Viserys of House Targaryen, you claim descent from the Dragon Kings. He lifted bleary eyes. The rightful king, he rasped. Perhaps once, she said. But the realm has shed enough blood for crowns. You will have safe conduct south, to Old Town. There you may take ship to Essos, or remain and rebuild, if you swear no sword against Westeros. He gaped. You release me? Freedom is sweeter than iron. She answered. Use it wisely. Jon's gaze warmed with faint approval. Euron scowled as though robbed of sport, but bowed. The Queen's word is law. I ask, then, my writ. Your gall outruns your ships, Cersei said. Serve honorably this year. Escort grain to northern ports, purge pirates from the narrow sea, and the stepstones may be yours by decree of council. Fail, and the Night King's fate may seem gentle. Da. He licked his lips, curiosity warring with greed. A year's service, he echoed. Done. He slapped a palm over his chest. The kraken bends knee, until it bites. He laughed at his own jest. No one joined him. Jon's men escorted Viserys to the infirmary. Euron returned to his ship, his swagger stifled. Snow began falling again, gentle as sifted flour upon the quay. That night Cersei stood atop Winterfell's highest tower, alone save for the flicker of a single brazier. Features of the castle blurred beneath fresh snow, new white smoothing old ruin. Somewhere below, revels drifted from the hall. Drunken songs about giants and wolves, punctuated by Tormund's thunderous laughter. Above, the aurora rippled faint green across the northern sky, a ghost of the fire the giant had summoned from the deep. She closed her eyes, letting the wind sting her lashes. In that moment, she felt the distance between the woman she had been. Cunning, embittered, grasping. A one the realm now needed. A figure willing to soften, to trust, to risk her own heart on fragile peace. Change, she knew, was the hardest conquest. You think too loudly, Tyrion's voice drifted from the stair. He joined her, swaddled in a fur that pooled about his feet. I could hear your thoughts rattling down the corridor. She half smiled. I expected you in the wine cellars. I exhausted their charity. He leaned on the parapet. Do you regret sparing Viserys? No. She exhaled. Do you? Viserys is a worm, but a worm need not be crushed if one has already tilled the field. Tyrion brushed snow from his beard. I'm surprised at you, Cersei. Mercy never favored our line. Then tell. She met his gaze. Perhaps Lannisters evolve. Or perhaps winter bleeds the cruelty out of anyone. He glanced skyward. Dragons. Do you think they come? If Daenerys lives, yes. Cersei rested gloved hands on the stone. But she will find a different Westeros than the one she fled. A realm not awaiting saviors. A realm that may yet choose her. Tyrion's eyes were weary. People adore Flame Reborn. Cersei's jaw tightened. Then we must build something worth their loyalty before she lands. Silence settled. Tyrion finally nodded. Very well. Tomorrow we begin. Guild charters, granary inventories, parole letters for lords who bent a knee to Ramsay only under fear. I'll need 100 scribes and better ink. Nenamai. Take them. She straightened. And Tyrion. Thank you. For this. His expression flickered, softened, then shuddered. You're welcome, sister. He turned to leave. But remember, a fair head atop a just table never masked a hidden dagger. She watched him descend. Snow hissed in the brazier, steaming. The aurora's green wavered like a reflection of wildfire across heaven. Cersei allowed herself a single deep breath. The realm's new chapter had begun. Whether tragedy or triumph, she would write it in ink thicker than gold. 9 days later, ravens beat their wings across Westeros, carrying proclamations sealed in wax of wolf and lion, intertwined. The letters named the War of Night's doom concluded, established the Pact of Winterfell, mutual defense between crown lands, North, Vale, Reach, Riverlands, and Iron Islands for a generation, and summoned delegations to King's Landing for a spring council that would restructure taxes, shipping tariffs, and the Citadel's reach into royal policy. The news swept through holdfasts and market squares like a thaw wind, leaving both relief and uncertainty. In the shadow of the shattered wall, wildlings loped south hunting game along abandoned highways, unsure whether the realm would greet them as allies or trespassers. At the arbor, red wine casks rolled onto galleys bound for White Harbor. In Old Town, archmaesters assembled treatises on the basalt giant, quarreling over whether Valyrian glyphs etched beneath its cooled hide predated the doom. And on Dragonstone, the miners of Dragonglass Delve descended deeper, tracing spiral stairs pungent with volcanic damp toward doors that hummed faintly if pressed, doors that had not opened since Valyria. Qyburn arrived within the fortnight, hungry for secrets. He brought ciphers half-translated from shards chipped off the giant's blackened hide. They spoke of a heart of fire deeper than shadow, bound by blood and song. He found Azen Payne, the master miner, waiting at the bottomless rung of steps, 1 foot in molten water up to his shin, hair brittle white. Payne led him to a cavern the size of the Sept of Baelor, where obelisks of obsidian jutted like broken teeth, and in the central pit, a single stone egg bigger than a man thrummed with dull red light. Qyburn sent ravens that very night. One to Cersei. I have found something old, perhaps alive. Another to the Citadel, coded, the fire that walks. And a third, unsigned, to Euron aboard his refurbished flagship. Proof of the storm's eye lies beneath the stone. Come quietly. Swiftly. Gentile. What Qyburn suspected no maester could confirm. That the egg housed not flesh but fire made fleshless. A power to melt armies. A dragon of stone heart. If he could birth it, no queen, Targaryen or Stark, would outshine his lioness. In King's Landing, the Red Keep thrummed with refurbishers' hammers. Frost-brittle masonry flaked, towers roofed with slate replaced scorched wood. Gold cloaks, newly disciplined under Ser Brienne's watchful instruction, drilled in the mud yard with dragonglass inset spears. An absurdity, some muttered, but the Queen had decreed every regiment must train against horrors unimaginable until recently. Merchant trains from the Reach rolled through the Lion Gate bearing flour and salted pork. The smell of bread returned in alleys where plague once lingered. In the throne room, Cersei held court beneath new banners. A gold lion rampant astride a direwolf argent, on a field of crimson and snow. It was compromise made cloth, a vision whispered by Tyrion in the long ride south. To Northerners it spoke of respect, to Southerners it reaffirmed Lannister primacy. She sat the Iron Throne in wool and fur rather than embroidery, wearing a sword belt instead of a crown of golden roses. The small folk gossiped. The Queen had changed. The Queen had gone mad. The Queen now kept a direwolf pup in her chambers. None were true. Yet she had changed. She answered petitions with flinty fairness, dispensed grain to bakeries at cut rate, and levied new taxes only upon merchants who had profiteered during the siege months prior. Still, she struggled with the ghost of herself. In private chambers, her hands shook. Phantom memories of wildfire and children's corpses clawing at sleep. She hid it well, but Jaime saw. At twilight he would find her tracing the carved lions on the balcony rail, gaze distant. She confessed once, when wine had blurred the edges of the world, that she feared the peace more than war. Peace required trust, and trust invited betrayal. Jaime held her then, whispering of open roads they would ride come summer, of vineyards and puppies, and some place far from towers where they might forget. She allowed herself to believe it, briefly. On the eve of first harvest, Jon and Sansa arrived for the Grand Council. With them rode Arya, Bran, Davos Seaworth, and 100 Stark men-at-arms. Ghost loped ahead, howling. The city's gates swung wide, banners streaming. Small folk, trembling at the memory of Tywin's sack, looked on uncertainly, but threw garlands when no pillage followed. Jon's company bivouacked in Maegor's holdfast, and that night the queen hosted a feast of venison and root stew. Cersei toasted and Tyrion led a raucous drinking contest between Tormund and Bronn that ended in shards and singing. On the morrow the council convened inside the old Sept's crypt, the hall where dragon skulls once brooded. Lords of 6 realms and lady regents filled semicircles of carved benches. Sir Barristan Selmy, recalled from exile by royal edict, presided as master-at-arms to moderate duels of policy rather than blade. For 3 days they argued tariffs, garrison sizes, and the fate of the Iron Throne itself. Jon proposed a great court of kingdoms, 7 thrones, each lesser than the Iron Seat, but equal in vote, to steer war and coin. Glover balked. Mace Tyrell's widow demanded greater grain subsidies. The Vale's Lord Royce insisted on toll exemptions for mountain passes. Amid these quarrels, Cersei remained surprisingly patient, deferring to Tyrion to deflate the worst pomposities. Jaime observed with cautious pride. She spoke only when terms threatened to fracture, the sure hand of a steward, not tyrant. It was Sansa who pressed hardest, chiseling away at Southron assumptions, insisting that northern timber rights be protected, that the Riverlands receive crown funding to redredge the Trident for grain barges. She startled even Tyrion with her grasp of decimals and incline grades. During recess, Jaime overheard courtiers whisper that the true steel of winter did not belong to Jon but to his sister. On the 4th morning, ravens blackened the sky. They bore Qyburn's seal. Cersei broke the first scroll at table. Her face blanched. Without comment, she rose and departed. Cloak snapping. Jaime followed, catching her in the stairwell. "What tidings?" he asked. She showed him the parchment. A charcoal sketch depicted the stone egg, runes luminous around it. Beneath Qyburn's cramped hand, the embryo quickens. Bring the queen. Bring the king. The flame that never dies will serve a throne of unity. Jaime's jaw clenched. This path leads only to ruin. It leads to power, Cersei answered. Enough power to shatter everything we've built. He caught her wrist. Think, Cersei. Dragons once forged the realm, but also burned Harrenhal, melted the capital's stones. We barely survived one invasion of whites. Must we summon another dragon? Da. She wrenched free. A queen must command fear as well as love. If Daenerys lands, if Essos sends armies of Sellsword-smelling weakness, I need more than promises. I need fire. Fire is never tame. Neither am I. She turned, descending. Far to the east, beyond the narrow seas and half a world of wind-scoured spines, a dragon hauled itself skyward. Scales pitted by storm, wings half-tattered, but the furnace in its chest burned bright. Daenerys Targaryen rode its withers, hair streaming silver across the shattered saddle. She gazed west where clouds bunched on the horizon. Her brother's whisper still echoed, visions in the red temple of Volantis, telling her Westeros had crowned wolves and lions together. In the saddlebag at her hip, she carried a crystal so black it swallowed torchlight. The heart of the dragon she lost above Valeria, coalesced from slag after its fiery death. Priests of the red gods swore it contained memory of flame. She would bring it home and seed a clutch. Anew. Below, her ragged host trudged along the coast. Freedmen, Dothraki, unsullied, perhaps half what she once commanded. Yet they remained formidable, and her anger sharpened their iron. She whispered to the wind, "Viserys, if you live, you will see me crowned, and when I arrive, woe to those who bar my path." She guided the dragon west, into storms. Months passed in a blur of decree and masonry. Cersei signed charter after charter, sanctioning new garrisons at Moat Cailin, funding repair of the Erie Road, granting Euron provisional governance of the Stepstones, after dispatches, confirmed he had routed 4 pirate dens and captured 50 casks of saffron for the royal kitchens. Yet whispers from Dragonstone grew urgent. Qyburn's letters spoke of tremors shaking the mines, of stones singing in the deep. The egg had begun to crack along glowing seams. It pulsed with heartbeat thunder. He begged the queen to come before the birth. At last, Cersei sent word to Jon, requesting a joint inspection, to honor transparency and dispel fear. Jon agreed reluctantly, though Sansa suspected darker motives. She insisted Bran accompany them. Bran in turn demanded Arya. Jaime made 5 tourists. Tyrion remained behind to chair the council while they sailed. The voyage south was swift, the narrow sea uncharacteristically placid. Yet each night, Cersei lay awake to the creaking of timbers, recalling her father's maxim, "No victory stays won." She dreamed of wildfire beneath King's Landing, of children crying in dark tunnels. She dreamed of a dragon's scream fissuring the sky. They made harbor at Dragonstone beneath a slate dawn. Smoke plumed from the mountain's vent, black streaks across pale cloud. Qyburn awaited at the pier, clad in a miner's smock streaked obsidian dust. His smile gleamed. "Majesties," he murmured, bowing. "I bear wonders." He guided them into the belly of the keep, through tunnels newly braced with iron. Heat intensified. Stone walls sweated. Deeper still, past antechambers carved with scaled sigils of the Valyrians, lay the spiral vault, lit by fitful crimson. The air thrummed with pressure. Jon's hand rested on Longclaw's hilt. Even Cersei felt the blade vibrate faintly. At the vault's heart stood the egg upon a tripod of fused dragon glass. Cracks etched the shell like black lightning. Within glowed magma threads. Each pulse throbbed light through the chamber, illuminating runes carved on the floor. New runes, chiseled by Qyburn's team, shaping an intricate cage of geometry and old tongue. At equal points along the circle sat braziers and bowls of stranger substances. Bran's pupils widened. His chair rolled forward under Arya's push. Qyburn spoke reverently. "It awakens. We need only blood to bind it. A covenant between and realm, ratified in fire." Jon stiffened. "No, this power cannot be chained." "Everything can be chained," Qyburn purred. "The first men chained giants with song. The Valyrians clasped dragons in wrought iron. With proper sigils, we command flame." Bran whispered, "Your sigils are flawed. The runes of inversion clash with the binding glyph. They will unmake what you see." Qyburn's smile faltered. "My lord does not grasp." "I grasp," Bran said. His voice echoed strange, older. "You carve disorder upon a heart that outlives order. If it hatches under your lines, it will devour commands, not obey them." Jaime rounded on Qyburn. "You risk the realm. End this madness." But Cersei's eyes fixed the egg, mesmerized. She sensed power here, greater than wildfire, greater than all Ironbank's gold. If she mastered it, she could keep every oath and yet fear no betrayal. She stepped over the chalk circle. Jon caught her arm. "Cersei." She shook him off. We came to witness, not cower. She reached her hand to the egg. Heat blistered her palm, but she kept it there. The glow brightened. Qyburn plunged a dagger into his forearm without flinching and let blood drip onto runes. The line sizzled, sucking scarlet. The vault shook. Bran shouted, "Stop!" Arya leapt across the circle, blade drawn. Jaime braced to intervene. But the egg cracked wide. A spear of molten light shot ceilingward, searing stone. The tripod collapsed. The shell flowered open, releasing not creature but a column of living fire swirling like a serpent. In its core flickered shapes, wings unfurling, fangs forming of ember. It shrieked, soundless yet deafening, the voice of Earthheart tears. Bran thrust his hands outward. Invisible force rippled. Runes snapped, lines blazing white, then blacking out. The serpent wavered. Qyburn screamed with ecstasy, or horror, as the flame coiled around him. Flesh turned glass, shattered. Sparks rained, igniting alchemical oils. Vault walls cracked. Out! Jon bellowed. Jaime swept Cersei back as the fire serpent lashed at her shadow. Arya rolled beneath tumbling stone, dragging Bran's chair. They spilled into the tunnel. Behind, the vault imploded, stone collapsing inward with a thunder that rushed hot wind through passages. Fire chased them, a crawling sun. They burst into the yard, coughing smoke. The mountain roared, cracks spidered up its slope, magma fountains spraying. Soldiers scrambled to douse embers, bells clanged. Above the caldera's mouth, the serpent boiled, condensing. It shrank, brightened, and condensed again, taking shape of a dragon rod of flame, translucent, its wingspan unfurling across the vent. It lacked flesh. It was fire-given skeleton only by its own heat. Eyes blazed gold. It stared down at them, at Cersei, and screamed. The sound splintered sky. Clouds rolled aside. Winds whipped sparks into whirlwinds. The creature launched skyward, leaving a spiral of molten droplets that hardened mid-air into black glass shards plummeting like daggers. One tore through a turret. Another sank into the sea, sending steam plumes high. Jon seized Cersei's shoulders. "Is this your safety?" She trembled, not from cold. "No, I did not know." Bran wheeled to face her. "It is bound to no blood. It is the earth's rage unbottled. You freed it." "Benderwander." Qyburn freed it. "You permitted it," Bran said. His words held no malice, only fact. Regret knifed her stomach. Yet part of her marveled. They had birthed something even the Valyrians had perhaps only dreamed. And only she had seen it first. The fire dragon circled above Dragonstone, trailing sparks. Then, with a roar, it veered west, toward King's Landing, toward wood roofs and hay-strewn streets, where wildfire storerooms still slept. Cersei swayed. Jaime caught her. "We must warn the city," she gasped. Jon's yaw worked. "We cannot outrun it." Bran's head tilted, listening to something beyond sound. "There is one way." He wheeled toward Jon. "A dream. The wolf takes fire." Ghost padded from the shadows, fur singed by stray sparks. The dire wolf's red eyes met Bran's. Jon's heart clenched. "What are you saying?" "I can ward the wolf with old magic," Bran said. "Bind ice to his fangs, the memory of the wall. If Ghost leaps into flame, the chill may shatter it. But I must ward deep, deeper than ever, and I might not return." Jon knelt before his brother. "I cannot ask this." "You need not ask," Bran said quietly. "It is already chosen. The Song of Ice and Fire ends with balance, not dominion." He looked to Cersei. "Your hunger tore the balance. Now your vow can mend it. Will you swear the North's pact again, but this time in humility?" Cersei's throat tightened. "1,000 times," she whispered. "On my life. Help us, Bran." He nodded. "Then hold me." Jaime and Arya lifted Bran's chair onto the pyre remnants for height. Ghost padded close, muzzle touching Bran's hand. Bran closed his eyes. His body sagged as if strings cut. Ghost shivered. Frost bloomed along his fur, edge of each hair tipped with rime. A thin mist streamed from his jaws. The fire dragon shrieked overhead, rays of dawn flickering through its incandescent ribs. Ghost raised his head and howled, an echo of winter. He bounded up the ramp, leapt from the parapet into empty sky. As he sailed, frost crystallized across his fur, transforming him into a comet of blue-white ice. He struck the dragon's breast in a silent explosion. Steam howled, lightning forked. Fire and frost collided in a sphere brighter than midday sun. When it cleared, shards of black obsidian rained, tinkling like distant bells. The dragon was gone. Ghost plummeted, a streak of pale smoke, into the boiling sea. Ripples hissed. Then silence returned, broken only by gull cries. On the parapet, Bran opened his eyes, mud-brown, human. He shuddered. "He sleeps beneath the waves," he murmured. "The sea cools him. He is alive." Relief and grief mingled on Jon's face. He clasped Bran's hand. "Thank you." Bran managed a ghost of a smile. "Ghost has always loved to swim." Cersei stared at the horizon where the creature had died, awed, chastened, hollow. In one moment, hunger for dominance had birthed potential doom. In the next, a crippled boy had sacrificed everything to still it. She wiped tears she had not felt form. Jaime placed a hand on her shoulder. "The realm endures because its people do, not because of thrones." "I see that now," she whispered. And hearing herself, she knew it true. In King's Landing they awaited catastrophe that never came. Instead, an evening courier galloped through the Lion Gate, shouting that Dragonstone burned, but the fire had flown west and died in the sea. The small folk prayed at septs, leaving offerings of candied nuts and broken toys for the warrior and the mother. Rumors spread that Queen Cersei had tamed a dragon of light, but spared the city. Tyrion, grave with worry, drank half the cellar, then began drafting edicts to improve firefighting infrastructure. When the royal fleet berthed days later, crowds choked the quay. They saw Cersei descend gangplank unhelmed, arm in simple sling where a falling shard had grazed her. They saw Bran Stark wheeled beside her, skin sallow, but eyes serene. They saw Jon Snow lift a pouch from the deck. Within, shards of obsidian fused with black glass scales, proof of a dragon that had never lived yet nearly ended thousands. Cersei knelt on the quay and kissed the stones, swearing aloud the pact of balance. No fire without ice, no crown without counsel, no magic unshackled from mercy. The vow echoed from ramparts to slums. Scribes etched it onto copper plates fixed to the Red Keep gates. And across the realm, a strange calm flowered, not without dissent, for warlords grumble by nature, but with enough hope to outshine fear. Peasant girls sang of the direwolf who swallowed flame. Septons preached that even queens must kneel to higher purpose. Far beyond sunset's rim, Daenerys sighted the slender peninsula of Dorne, rising like a knife from violet sea. Her dragon's ragged wings pumped slower now. Hunger gnawed its belly. Fires once bright in its throat flickered low, dimmed by unbroken flight. She beheld the land she had dreamt of nearly her whole life, and sensed change on the wind. No smoke rose from castles, no columns of refugees filled roads south. The realm was at peace. She landed upon a cliff to let her host catch up. There, a Dornish fisher spoke of wolves and lions united, of a queen in fur, of a dragon of fire slain by a direwolf of frost. He spoke with awe, not fear. Daenerys listened, stunned. That night, she gazed at her own dragon, all that remained of her children, and wondered whether Westeros still needed her fire, or whether she must bend her knee as well, to a world perhaps wiser than its fathers. Mourning and humility twisted inside her like twin vines. She thought of Viserys, rumored alive and free, and wept for the broken path behind them. She turned her gaze north, to King's Landing's torchlit glow beneath the moon. Then she turned inland, toward the high mountains of the Red Waste, where rumor said wildlings now helped Dothraki graze horses on summer grass. She whispered to her dragon and banked east, away from crowns, toward a horizon unscripted, leaving the realm she had once sought to rule to those who had learned, painfully, to rule themselves. Years later, bards would argue when the war for balance truly ended. Some marked the defeat of the Night King, others, the slaying of the stone-born dragon. But those who lived the days that followed spoke of smaller victories, roads reopened, children born in peace, joint harvest festivals where northerners tasted arbor wine and southerners marveled at snow sculptures carved in lion and wolf. They spoke of Queen Cersei in plain wool, riding north each year to lay a wreath of winter roses at the tomb of men who had called her foe, and of King John visiting the capital to judge tourneys beside Jaime in the shade of red leaves transplanted from Winterfell's heart tree. They spoke of Tyrion's reforms, which lowered tariffs yet raised coffers, and of Sansa's letters that traveled weekly, stitching language of compromise across old divides. No story ended perfectly. Pirates still prowled the stepstones, testing Euron's vigilance. Bandits in the riverlands rose after each flood. Wildling raids flared on Eastwatch now and then. Yet when horns sounded, armies rode not as conquerors, but as shield brothers, remembering snow-choked dawns when the dead had nearly stolen the sun. On the 12th anniversary of that dawn, as spring painted the fields gold, a direwolf the color of ghost fog loped into the Red Keep's yard. He bore a limp pelt marred by old scars, but eyes burned gentle. Bran, grown tall on crutches of weirwood, smiled and stroked his muzzle. Cersei watched from the balcony, gold hair threaded with silver, and felt a tear gather. Below, children chased the wolf, squealing delight, fearless of teeth they knew could protect not harm. Jaime's voice drifted across the courtyard, instructing squires how to parry. Tyrion dozed on a bench, a ledger open across his chest. Peace, weary, imperfect, fragile, lived and breathed. Cersei turned her face to the sun. Power still tempted her. Fear still whispered. The past still stirred in dreams. But each day she rose and answered not to ghosts, but to the living. She had learned, crowns shone brightest not by the forge of conquest, but by the polish of shared hands. As evening's first star winked above the city, she whispered a vow older than any sigil. No fire without ice, no rule without bond. And because vows mattered only in their keeping, she set her feet upon stone stairs and walked down to join the children, to greet the direwolf who once carried winter in his jaws, and to lay her hand on the future that would remember the night when wolves and lions together taught the world to choose life over flame. Oh, Kay. Oh. A hush settled over the Red Keep's rookery, broken only by the faint flutter of raven wings and the rasp of quills scratching parchment. From the highest window, Bran Stark watched the sun bleed copper across Blackwater Bay. The crippled boy who once dreamed of flying had become Lord Archivist of the realm, yet these days his sight drifted far beyond the parchment maps pinned to the chamber walls. The weir net, roots of memory that threaded every green thing in Westeros, murmured constantly in his head, a lullaby of tides and tree sighs. But on this spring evening, the song struck a sour note, as if a harp string snapped somewhere in the east and set the rest humming in discord. He frowned, eyes clouding milky white, and slipped from flesh into leaf and sky. In an instant he skimmed above the narrow sea, over dusky waves and foam-topped ridges, over the lines of galleys rowing north toward Pentos, over the Tanara Straits and the pale dunes on the fringe of the Red Waste. Beneath a blistering sun, he found what pricked at his senses, a long procession trudging west. Thousands of men and women, sun-darkened, wind-scarred, following the banner of a three-headed dragon rippling red upon black. At their head rode Daenerys Targaryen, astride a charcoal beast whose tattered wings beat an uneven rhythm. Her silver hair streamed in the scalding wind, and her face, once youthful, had weathered into harsher lines of loss and longing. She bent often to speak to the Dothraki outriders, but Bran saw the grief shadowing her gaze. He followed the thread of anger coiled inside her, anger that flared every time her dragon faltered mid-flight and plunged toward the dunes before shaking strength back into its bones. Bran retreated to his body with a gasp. The raven perched on the sill croaked as if in sympathy. He steadied himself against the cedar table, his crutch clattering. 12 years of peace had given Westeros time to forget dragonfire. That peace was now measured against the ragged beats of one dragon's wings. He penned a swift note. Daenerys marches. Dragon wing broken but not heart. She heads for the stepstones first. Euron's death leaves a void. War may follow water tower. Bran sealed it in white wax, stamped with the direwolf, and wheeled himself toward the door. Ghost, gray muzzle now frosted white, rose from his place by the hearth and padded beside him. Together, they set off for the Queen's chambers. Queen Cersei Lannister stood before a floor-length mirror, hands clasped behind her back. Time had etched fine lines around her eyes, silvered a few strands of golden hair, yet she wore the years like a mantle rather than a burden. Tonight, she faced the Lantern Court, an assembly of city guildmasters demanding a reduced tithe on summer wine. She had no patience for merchants who haggled while famine rumors flickered along half-tilled borders of the Dornish marches. Still, politics required ceremony, and she had chosen sober garb. Dark velvet embroidered with a crimson lily rather than lions, a subtle nod to the Riverlands orchard keepers, whose orchards now budded after 3 long winters. A knock. Jaime entered with Bran's scroll in hand. His left shoulder carried a permanent stoop from the obsidian shard that grazed him at Dragonstone, yet the pain barely slowed his stride. He passed her the message and waited. Cersei read it twice. Daenerys, she murmured. After all these years. She looked to Jaime. How fares Euron's bastard heir in the Stepstones? Axel Storm keeps only half the fleet seaworthy, Jaime said. The other half turned pirate the moment Axel increased patrol levies. If a Targaryen banner appears, those captains will bend quicker than reeds. Cersei paced to the balcony. The square below bustled with carpenters, erecting floral arches for the upcoming midsummer fair. She remembered wildfire haze, remembered smoke pillars from her father's siege, and clenched her jaw. Summon the Phoenix Council now. I want Jon and Sansa on Raven's Wing. And Tyrion is already below with Lord Davos, Jaime interrupted gently. They drafted a plan for harbor defenses last winter. Double the casks of seawater along the wharves nonetheless. She pinched the bridge of her nose. Targaryen fire will test our resolve and our new alliances. If the North flinches. A low growl cut her words. Ghost padded into the chamber. Bran behind him. The Queen acknowledged Bran with the same half-smile she reserved for living memories. Fond, guarded. He relayed his vision in calm, clipped tones. When he finished, Cersei sighed. I will send envoys south, she said. Perhaps we parley before flame. Bran shook his head. She will not stop for diplomats. She seeks what she believes stolen, destiny given, then denied. And she bears relics of strange fire. I felt the ember heart in her saddlebags. Then we ready the realm, Jaime said. But Bran's next words hushed them. Ready, yes, he whispered. Yet remember, peace is not preserved by walls alone, but by offering doors. Someone must ride to her with truth, lest war ride faster. Cersei met his gaze. The old Cersei would have scoffed at talk of doors over spears. Yet the last decade had shown another battlefield, the one between suspicion and trust. She looked to Jaime, and together they recalled the night fire nearly devoured Dragonstone, a night saved by Bran's open hand. Who? She asked. Me, Bran said. Silence. Impossible, Jaime retorted. You cannot cross half the continent. I ride in mind, Bran cut in. Others in flesh. He turned to the Queen. Send Arya. The wild still lives in her bones. She knows Essosi sands and can slip as shadow. With her, Davos for tongue and honesty. They may reach the Dragon Queen before her wrath crosses the sea. Ghost brushed Bran's knee. The wolf's eyes gleamed red. Bran smiled. And the wolf will guide them. Cersei studied the boy. No, the man, who had once been her enemy. If Arya accepts, she said, She leaves tonight. She will accept, Bran answered. North of the neck, the god's wood of Winterfell thrummed with spring sap. Arya knelt at the heart tree, blade across her lap. The names she had once recited nightly, of men she meant to kill, had faded into the hummed cadence of lullabies. Now her breathing followed a different mantra. The waist heel must be quiet, the strike must be kind. She no longer killed for vengeance but for necessity, and the gods had seen fit to grant her long seasons where necessity did not call. She had become warden of the Wolf's Wood, protector of the wild roots along the wall's shadow, happiest when tracking elk with Jon's son Benjen, or sparring with Sansa's ward, young Lyanna Mormont. The raven reached her just past dusk, fluttering to the branch above her head. She recognized the seal at once. Her pulse quickened, not with fear but with the tingling thrill of old purpose. When she entered the great hall, Sansa set down her quill and rose from behind a ledger heavy with trade receipts. The sisters embraced. It feels like yesterday we buried swords under this roof, Sansa murmured. Now peace asks for them again. Arya smiled, but her eyes hardened. Peace is a blade too, she said. It needs sharpening. Jon arrived from the yard smelling of horse and sweat. He listened to Bran's summons, then fetched a rolled map of the free cities. By firelight, they plotted 2 routes: a fast galley to the stepstones under false flag, then overland across the Valyrian peninsula, avoiding slaver roads. Davos volunteered to captain the voyage. After a decade as master of ships, he still thought salt tasted better than wine. 3 nights later, the Sky Song slipped from White Harbor, moonlit spray hissing against her prow. Davos steered beneath the quiet stars. Arya stood on the forecastle, and Ghost, perched silent as mist, watched for shapes in the gloom. Their only other companion, chosen for eyes and wit, was Maester Gorman Tyrell, whose pale hair and courtly bearing disguised a mind that could quote high Valyrian spells and pirate codes with equal fluency. At dawn, Gorman would brew tea of fire pepper, claiming it cured seasickness. In truth, the concoction kept even Arya awake long after midnight, pupils wide. 8 days out, a squall drove them onto a tiny isle north of the Basilisk Rocks. There, glimmering in a tide pool, Arya glimpsed something eerie: shards of black glass with crimson veins pulsing faintly. Gorman knelt, muttered prayers to the crone, and collected the shards into a lead box. Stoneheart residues, he explained, like those Clyburn once studied. Davos eyed the box warily, but Arya touched one shard, felt heat swirl beneath her fingertip, heat laced with sadness, as though the memory of the fire dragon still wept inside. They sailed on. In King's Landing, rumors arrived with every fishing skiff. The Stepstone Corsairs now flew black and red banners. Town criers shouted that Daenerys had brokered safe passage for freed slavers under her protection, promising them farmland in the Rainwood. Others whispered darker tales: that she bartered Corthian pyromancy to mend her dragon's failing wing, that her priests carried obsidian hearts like candles that bled flame. Cersei held council from dawn till dusk. Lords fretted. Merchants threatened. But the Queen's calm never cracked. She gave orders to stock the Rosby mines with fresh draft horses, to dispatch blinking ravens each hour to the Stepstone Watchers, and to reopen the old dragon pit atop Aegon's Hill, not as prison, but as sanctuary. If dragons come, she reasoned, let them perch where their ancestors ruled, not where small folk burn. Some applauded her foresight. Some called it folly. Tyrion watched quietly, a ghost of wine cup always at his elbow. When word came that Arya's galley had vanished from sight near the broken arm of Dorne, Cersei faced the council and spoke simply: this mission stands between flame and kingdom. Pray the wind favors them. She did not say what else she felt. The faint sting of envy that Jon had trusted his sister to speak for the realm, more than he trusted the queen who wore its crown. Beneath a blistering noon sun, Arya, Davos, and Maester Gorman staggered off the Sky Song's jolly boat onto cracked red sand. Their galley had anchored beyond a reef of jagged black rock, The larger bays crawled with Targaryen ships bristling scorpions and barrels of Isle of Cedars pitch. The landing site reeked of salt and rot, but Arya inhaled deeply. The air smelled of her youth. Hot, dangerous, alive with possibility. Ahead, stretched dunes, studded with petrified trees. Gorman consulted a scrap of parchment. An old Valyrian outpost lies 3 leagues inland, he said. Daenerys' vanguard camps there. They trudged. By dusk their feet burned and Davos' knuckles bled from hauling Ghost, free of tar pits twice. When the ruins rose from the sand like dragon ribs, Arya felt a prickle at her nape. Eyes watched them. Ghost growled as figures stepped from crumbling archways, unsullied in dented helms, their blue plumes faded by sun. The captain lifted a spear, muttered in Astapori to a slave who translated. Name, house, purpose. Davos stepped forward. I am Davos Seaworth, once called Onion Knight, now master of ships to the Queen of Westeros. I come bearing words only the Dragon Queen may hear. This is Mistress Arya of Winterfell. He withheld Stark name purposely, and Maester Gorman of Old Town, a witness and healer. The unsullied captain conferred with his men, then gestured. The 3 were disarmed, not without Ghost hacking a growl at the guard who touched Arya's sword, and led through torchlit corridors into a great courtyard where a sagging canvas canopy flapped overhead. There, on a throne of hacked driftwood, Daenerys sat draped in bone-white robes. The years had sharpened her cheekbones, tempered her violet eyes with steel. Beside her crouched the dragon. Steam puffed from cracked scales along one wing, but its gaze burned bright. Daenerys regarded them in silence. When she spoke, her voice rasped as if sandblasted. Davos of the narrow sea, you carry the promise of wolves and lions. Why should I not flay your words to see the lies within? Davos bowed, unashamed. Because lies thin quicker than truth under desert sun. We bring no threats, only plea for peace. Arya stepped forward. I bring a gift from my brother, King Jon of the North. She produced a small parcel wrapped in wool. When Daenerys opened it, obsidian shards shimmered crimson. The dragon hissed. Fragments of a fire born at Dragonstone, Arya said. A fire that once threatened Westeros, but was quenched by ice and sacrifice. My brother asks that you feel their heat before you decide to kindle more. Daenerys turned one shard in her palm. Its veins pulsed in rhythm with the dragon's breathing. Such shards once killed my ancestors, she said softly. But they also forged their crown. Gorman stepped forward shakily. Your Grace, the shard contains living memory of wildfire mixed with ancient sorcery. It longs for flame, but when that flame burns, it also weeps. It mourns its own consumption. He swallowed. I have studied them. They do not desire rebirth. They merely desire rest. The Dragon Queen's gaze flicked between the Maester and the wolf at Arya's side. Ghost's red stare bored back, unafraid. Suddenly, Daenerys rose. You speak of longing. What know you of mine? Her voice cracked. 12 years I wandered, binding wounds of a world that thanked me with chains, while those who broke faith wore crowns of gold and snow. Now I come to claim my own, and they send me, she flicked the shard, trinkets of caution. Arya met her fury calmly. They send you truth. The realm you seek changed itself with sweat and tears, not conquest. It stands ready to share crowns, not cast them. She drew breath. My sister Sansa writes that every field in the north sows grain first for the south. My brother dances children between weirwoods and burned septons. Cersei Lannister feeds widows of old foes. Tell me, would you burn that to raise something brighter? Then? Elwan? Daenerys' hand clenched. Davos sensed the dragon tensing beside her and stepped back, palms open. Your Grace, he tried. Peace makes no songs, but war? A horn blast cut him short, deep, ominous, from the ridge above. Unsullied rushed the walls. A scout tumbled into the courtyard bloodied, gasping. Ships! Banners of the Golden Company! Elephants! Daenerys' eyes narrowed. Triarch Galasro promised me sellswords if I freed his spice ships from pirates. Instead, he sells them to King's Landing. She turned to Arya. Speak of change, little wolf, but gold still buys swords. Even your queen's treaties do not feed Essos. Brooding thunder rolled overhead. Davos glimpsed silhouettes on the dunes, lances, gleaming helmets. The Golden Company had arrived sooner than any raven. Daenerys barked orders. Unsullied formed ranks. Dothraki riders mounted. She spun on Arya. Decision time. Dark. Bend knee or stand aside and watch destiny clash. Arya's mind raced. She saw two outcomes. Firestorm or fractured pack. She glimpsed Bran's quiet half-smile. Remembered his words. A door, not a wall. She knelt. Davos stared. Arya ignored him. I bend no fealty, she said to Daenerys, but I bend promise. Let my blade serve as truth witness. I will ride with you until the Golden Company breaks. Then we talk peace again. Daenerys studied her. If you betray me. I will not, Arya said simply. Because if you burn Westeros, I will not need to betray you. You will have betrayed yourself. The Dragon Queen's gaze lingered, then she nodded. Rise. To Davos. You may depart. Take word to your queen that her sellswords just became my shield. Nan? Davos' eyes flashed with worry and relief mingled. Arya clasped his arm. Tell Jon I do what I must. Tell Bran the way is still open. The Onion Knight left under guard. Ghost remained, a spectral sentinel at Arya's heel. That night, while soldiers hammered stakes and stretched bowstrings, Arya stood on a tower, watching Daenerys feed strips of salted goat to her dragon. She spoke softly in Valyrian. Stroking its scarred flank, Arya approached. He is beautiful, she said. Daenerys did not look up. He is broken. His wing mends only in fire, yet fire consumes him. She sighed. A mirror of his mother. Arya exhaled. Broken things still fly. She thought of Bran wheeling through corridors and seeing beyond horizons. She thought of Jaime's hollow stump now steady upon gold. Sometimes they soar higher. Daenerys' shoulders shook. Silent laughter or sob Arya could not tell. Tell me, little wolf, what breaks you? My list, Arya whispered, surprised by her own admission. I broke it to save myself. Yet echoes remain. When I smell fear, I want blood. When I see tyrants, I want steel. Daenerys nodded slowly. We are alike. Perhaps, Arya said. But each dawn we choose again what we become. Tonight you choose war. Tomorrow, perhaps peace. The dragon's amber eye regarded them both. Beyond the walls, lanterns bobbed in the enemy camp. A constellation of menace. Arya turned away, prepared for dawn. In King's Landing, horns at dawn roused the Phoenix Council. Ravens reported a Golden Company host, 4,000 strong under General Baleros, crossing the Stepstone Causeway. Cersei paled. She had ordered those sellswords bound by treaty, but gold's lure had outweighed parchment's ink. Tyrion spat curses. Jaime requested cavalry from the Stormlands, but even fast horses could not span seas. Cersei dismissed them and climbed the Tower of the Hand alone. There she removed Tommen's old kitten-cat crown from its velvet box, a circlet too small now, but heavy with memory. She remembered Bran's dream of doors and Arya's fearless gaze. Taking quill, she penned a single line. To the Queen of Dragons, your destiny need not scorch mine. Meet me at dusk on the seas between. 2 queens, 1 deck, no armies. Talk or torch. She sealed the letter with her signet and amber wax, then summoned the Swiftwing, fastest raven in the loft. As the bird vanished into dawn, she whispered, no walls. A door? Battle broke under a blood-orange sun. The Golden Company advanced in wedges across the dunes, elephants bellowing, banners snapping. Dothraki screamed, charging like a sandstorm. Unsullied ranks absorbed the first spear thrusts, shields rising as synchronized tide. Arrows streaked. Sand exploded under scorpion bolts. Arya rode a rangy broodmare, Ghost flanking her. She wove between Dothraki riders to the ridge where she could see lines clash. Steel rang, bearing sparks. Elephants trampled, shrieked, toppled. She felt the old thrill ignite in her veins, but she kept focus. Cut leaders, spare pawns. She spied General Baleros atop a white destrier. Arya spurred downhill, ghosting through dust. 2 pikemen lunged. Her Valyrian dagger flicked once, twice, and they fell clutching hamstrings. She slid beneath a flailing trunk. Sprang over a corpse pile, and leapt, landing behind Baleros. Her blade nicked his throat when he turned. Surprise froze his features. She leaned close. "There's a letter on its way to your paymaster," she hissed. "Stand down and you keep your purse. Fight on and your head buys mercy." She pressed just enough to draw a crimson bead. Baleros weighed, then dropped his sword. Horn blasts echoed. Retreat. Mercenaries peeled away, dragging wounded. The battle ended not with roar, but with ragged sigh. Daenerys circled overhead, the dragon spewing warding flame far from the lines. Scorching empty desert only. She landed at the ridge. Arya met her, dusty and blood-splattered. "You spared him," Daenerys observed. "I spared more than him," Arya replied. "Now he carries a tale. The Dragon Queen seeks truce." Daenerys stroked her dragon's neck. "Does she?" A distant cry drew their gaze. Over the horizon, a single ship approached. Sleek, white sails unmarked, save a crimson lily. Daenerys' eyes narrowed. "It bears Cersei's flag," Arya said. Daenerys mounted her dragon. "Come, wolf. Time to see if doors open both ways." The open deck of the Lily's Grace creaked beneath converging histories. Cersei stepped from the aft cabin in plain brown leather. No guards, no sword. Daenerys alighted opposite, the dragon hovering above, wings beating thunder. Arya stood between queens as tether of trust. The sea lay glass still, horizon golden. Cersei spoke first. "I once thought thrones only seat power if built of fear. I was wrong. Thrones seat hearts. Mine beats for a realm that survived ice and fire. Yours beats for a dream born in exile. If we clash, the world breaks again." Daenerys studied her. "You forged peace by trusting wolves and crows. Trust a dragon now, then share its flame." Cersei gestured to the surface. "Let us crown no one. Let us form a triune. Lion, wolf, dragon. Each with one vote, power balanced." She exhaled. "No absolute throne remains, only stewardship. You will be queen in what you build, not what you conquer." Daenerys' brow furrowed. "And my birthright is honored through service." Cersei's voice softened. "This ship's keel is oak from Winterfell and cedar from Sunspear. It floats because opposing grains hold it together. One grain alone would split under wave." Daenerys' gaze drifted to the dragon's scarred wing, then Arya's dusty face. "A new order, born of 3, she mused. "But dragons were born for sky, not committees." "Dragons were born to fly," Arya interjected. "And skies are widest when storms pass." Daenerys' laugh startled them both, a sudden musical burst. She looked to the dragon. "What say you, old friend? Another war or skies?" The beast's answering roar rippled sails. Sea spray hissed over the gunwale. At last Daenerys extended her hand. Cersei took it. Fingers clasped. A heartbeat later, Arya laid hers atop theirs, the wolf binding dragon and lion. From the cliffs afar, soldiers watched blazing silhouettes on a solitary deck, and could not guess what words floated on the salt wind. But those 3 knew. Westeros would not crown a single monarch this time. It would crown an idea. The Triune Accord, signed at Sunspear 1 month later, stunned the world. 3 thrones dissolved into a circle of regents: Lion Regent Cersei, Wolf Regent Jon, with Sansa proxy during his northern months, and Dragon Regent Daenerys. Each commanded levies only by consent of the other 2. Each oversaw trade corridors relevant to their houses. The small folk named it the Round Crown, a circle no head could wear alone. Some lords rebelled. Lord Rowan marched banners in the Reach, claiming farmers would not bow to distant dragons. But a single flight of Daenerys' wounded beast crossing over ripe grain fields, shadow large, flames withheld, persuaded more than swords. Others hedged bets, yet found prosperity in the new silk roads Daenerys opened to Volantis, carrying Dornish wine east and Essosi maize west. Tyrion thrived drafting charters, balancing ports like game pieces. Jaime instructed a joint guard where Unsullied drilled beside gold cloaks, spears clashing in friendly rivalry. Brienne commanded them, her voice still hoarse but unbreakable. 2 winters later, Bran foresaw the coming of a crimson comet, and declared it a sign to lay the last remnant of wildfire beneath the sea. Corthian mages aided, forging glass depths to imprison the volatile green. Ships emptied cask after cask into fissures overseen by dragons. That night the comet split the sky, mirrored by a green ripple far below waves, then faded forever. Peace endured not because swords lay idle, but because doors kept opening. When pirate princes from the Summer Isles raided Stepstone garrisons, Daenerys flew only so far as to rescue their captives, then negotiated sea lanes granting Isles traders duty-free passage in return for ending raids. When wildlings petitioned for farmland south of the Gift, Sansa brokered accords exchanging northern furs for southern seed. Cersei devoted her lion's cunning to rooting out corrupt guilds, earning cheers from fishwives who once flung slop at her retinue. On the 10-year anniversary of the Triune, a festival lit King's Landing. Lanterns of lion gold, wolf silver, and dragon red drifted up to join stars. Bran watched from a balcony, Ghost asleep at his feet. He felt the Weirnet pulse rhythmic with laughter instead of pain. He closed his eyes, listening for discord. Far to the east, storms brewed. Storms always brood. But within the realm, roots coiled tight, resilient. He turned to see Arya dancing with young squires, eyes bright. He heard Daenerys laugh as children begged to touch her dragon's healed wing. He spied Jaime and Tyrion wagering silver on Brienne, out-drinking Tormund. And he watched Queen Cersei lift a cup toward the sky, whisper something only her heart could hear, then smile, a smile that once would have broken kingdoms, now simply mended them. The boy who dreamed of flying whispered to the wind, and the wind carried it along the walls, across fields, through streets, into every hearth. No thrones, only circles. No crowns, only hands. And doors, always doors, open for those brave enough to walk through. The wind quieted. The lanterns rose higher, until they collided with the darkness above, and burst in silent blossoms of colored fire, little worlds forever choosing light. Oh, ah, oh. It. Silver gleam from a waning moon filtered through the red silk shutters of the Hands Solar, casting lattice shadows over a bureau littered with half-finished charters. Tyrion Lannister rubbed the bridge of his nose, coaxing away the sting of too many candles and too much arbor gold. Below his balcony, King's Landing throbbed with the last echoes of the Triune Festival. Distant drums, a scatter of drunken voices, the crackle of a final firework flaring violet against the clouds. Peace, he reminded himself, was noisy business. He dipped quill to ink once more. The parchment before him listed signatures. Lord Rowan's seal, Lord Grafton's gull, the triple knot of the Summer Island envoys. One column, though, remained blank. Prince Jalabar Eksho had promised cooperation against the pirate princes of Sapphire Straits, yet the prince's answer rode some fickle wind between Tall Trees Town and Old Town. Without it, Tyrion's carefully balanced tariff matrix would wobble, and wobbling things toppled faster than drunks down a Dunfort stair. A soft knock nudged the door. Brienne of Tarth stepped in, helmet under arm, moonlight silvering the sweat on her brow. "You asked for nightly watch commendations," she said, voice husky from drill yard commands. All signed. Tyrion accepted the ledger. Thank you, Sir Brienne. Sit. There's wine enough to drown a mummer's chorus. She shook her head. Dawn patrol in 4 hours. But she hesitated at the threshold, gaze drifting to the street, lit only by guttering oil pans. Strange sound tonight. Humming, just beyond hearing, made the horses restless. Tyrion cocked an eyebrow. Blackwater gulls courting. He tried levity, but her unease pricked him. Brienne rarely fretted over phantoms. Have the city alchemists store their wildfire casks deeper, she murmured at last. Something in the wind tastes wrong. He promised he would. After she left, Tyrion stood at the balcony rail, feeling for the pulse Brienne sensed. At first, nothing, then a tremor, so faint he might have dreamed it. A vibration in the stone, gone before he could name its source. He stared toward Aegon's Hill, where Daenerys' dragon roosted inside the reforged pit. The beast's silhouette sprawled motionless in the torchlit aperture, wings tucked like a sleeping bat. Yet a low thrumming rippled across the rooftops, returning every few breaths, as if some colossus miles away pounded a drum the city could only half hear. Tyrion's quill scratched one final note to himself. Speak with Bran at sunrise. Then he snuffed the candles and let darkness claim the room. At Winterfell, the same humming woke Bran, stark from dreamwalking. He lurched inside his mortal husk with a start, heart racing. The weirwood faces in his dream had sung warning, rhythms he knew to be the deep music, the language older than men or children. Each pulse had carried a name. Sothorios. Again, Sothorios. He sent ravens before dawn, talons scraping frost from parapets. One to King's Landing for Tyrion, one to Dragonstone, where Daenerys kept her healers and bazaars, and one further still, east across the narrow sea, to a contact in the free city of Tyrosh, a knives-in-council merchant who owed the Starks life and coin. Bran's message contained only 6 words. Ask the black ships what stirs. Ghost watched the ravens vanish, then resumed pacing the ramparts, hackles raised though the sun had not yet touched the mountains. Far south, sunlight shimmered over the alabaster terraces of Sunspear. Princess Arianne Martell, triune envoy to the Dornish marches, lounged beneath a silk canopy scented with orange blossom. Scrolls concerning irrigation subsidies lay unheeded on a low table. Hovering beside them, half obscured by shade, was a jar of glassy black shards, stone heart slivers gifted by Gorman Tyrell for study. They pulsed faintly, bleeding motes of crimson when strong sun lanced through. Dornish scholars insisted the shards were inert if left unlit, but Arianne sometimes swore she heard them hum like buried bees. Today the hum grew louder. Servants refilling her goblet paused, glancing about as if expecting musicians. Arianne laid a finger to the jar. Warmth pulsed back. Hotter than other mornings. Footsteps clattered on mosaic stairs. Her spy mistress, Illyria's eldest, breathless. A dozen Carthian skiffs anchored off the broken arm. She blurted. Crews dead, all of them. Skin cracked, blackened. No wounds. Bah. What cargo? Only this, princess. The spy mistress offered a sealed clay urn. Arianne pried it open. Inside coiled a single scrap of red-scaled hide, edges fused like glass. Heat radiated from the scrap, though it lay in seawater moments before. And as she lifted it, the shards in the jar flared brighter, throbbing like matching hearts. Arianne's blood chilled despite the sun. She dispatched falcons to King's Landing bearing one line of Prince's tongue code. Fire swims. 3 nights later, the humming reached a crescendo, across Westeros. In inns from Lannisport to White Harbor, cups rattled. Iron weather vanes quivered. Farm dogs bayed at blank horizons. Atop the wall's ruins, wildling sentries leaned into gale-force gusts that carried no scent of snow, only salt and ash. One reported a horizon glow far out to Western Sea, an ember band hugging the water, as though the world's rim smoldered. In King's Landing, Bran's raven reached Tyrion during council. Cersei and Daenerys listened as he read the words aloud. Their faces mirrored twin masks of concern. The pulse comes from beyond summer sea. Sothorios stirs. Black ships sail with living fire bound in iron root. Prepare citadels to douse flame storms. Night's tide follows. Daenerys bowed her head, whispering to the memories of her slain dragons. When she looked up, decision hardened her eyes. The broken continent breeds plagues and nightmares, she said. If flame now rises from those jungles, it is no natural hearth. She turned to Cersei. We sail south at once. The Triune's heart is King's Landing, but its hands must stretch to shield Dorne. Cersei agreed without hesitation. The Round Crown stands in 3, she said. Jaime commands the lion's host, Jon rallies the wolf from the neck, and you, take your wings. A rare smile ghosted her lips. And I will guard this city, come what may. Tyrion noted the tremor she failed to hide, old fear of wildfire under her feet. We flood every subterranean vault tonight, he said quietly. Barrels sunk into the riverbed. No spark shall find tinder. Later, beneath candle-fragile calm, Cersei found herself alone in the Queen's sept, kneeling before no idol, only the plain stone floor. She pressed her palm flat, feeling for the old hum of wildfire caches long removed. New vibrations greeted her instead, distant but building, like a sea giant's heartbeat. She prayed, not to 7 old gods, but to the nameless balance that had held the realm these past years. Let doors hold, let circles remain. Off the scorched coast of Sothorios, where jungle reached claw roots into boiling surf, a fleet as black as midnight carved through ash-flecked waves. Prows sheared from petrified mangrove bore sigils of no known kingdom, merely swirling glyphs that hurt the eye. On the main deck of the lead dreadship, a figure robed in red and obsidian faced north, arms raised to the starless night. Around the figure knelt acolytes chanting in a tongue older than Valyrian. In a casket at their center pulsed a single stoneheart shard the size of an infant's skull, veins casting bloody light over their sun-tattooed skin. At the chant's crescendo, the shard burst into liquid flame that did not burn the chest, instead hovering, a wobbling sphere. It split into 3 tendrils which arced skyward like comet tails. One west toward Neath, one east toward the Jade Sea, and one north toward Westeros, where lanterns of lion, wolf, and dragon still sparkled against peaceful nights. The shard cooled to onyx. The robed figure lowered arms, whispering, "The flares are loosed. Fire will call to fire. Stone will remember heart. The weld of man and beast lies north, waiting to kneel." Acolytes prostrated. Drums thundered from longboats. The black armada turned toward the summer sea, sails bulging with wind that smelled of brimstone and hot iron. 2 weeks sail north, Daenerys' flagship Seafoam, parted turquoise swells en route to Dorne. Her dragon wheeled overhead, renewed strength letting him skim wave tips. Arya stood at the bow, hair whipping silver in salt wind, one hand idly stroking Ghost's ear. Maester Gorman, pages flapping from his grimoire, lectured on volcanic fault lines rumored beneath the Jade Sea. Lines that, if cracked by sorcery, might birth flame tsunamis capable of crossing half a world. Daenerys hadn't slept in 2 nights. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw shards pulsing inside iron roots. A memory Bran had shown her from his raven vantage. On the 3rd dawn, the horizon flared green, not from sunrise but from an unnatural aurora climbing the southern sky. Winds reversed, slamming the seafoam broadside. Spray hissed like boiling water, though the sea remained cool. Sailors shouted. Masts groaned. Daenerys scanned the glow. Storm candles, she murmured, essence of wildfire drawn into upper air. Her dragon roared uneasily. Arya knocked an arrow of pale weirwood, as though one shaft could skewer the heavens. At midday, they reached Sunspear to find half the city gathered on the sea walls, eyes fixed south where pillars of green flame spun on the horizon. Princess Arianne greeted them bearing the charred Corthian hide scrap. Dot. When Daenerys touched it, the scrap shivered, and the far-off glow brightened, as though recognizing its kin. A council convened at once. Dornish generals, unsullied captains, alchemists, guild emissaries. Maester Gorman produced theories. Arianne presented reports of fisherfolk coughing up ash and of eels boiled in their own skins. All pointed to one conclusion. Sorcery in Sithorios had cracked volcanic vents, releasing living wildfire riding steam currents across the ocean. Those flamestorms reached the greater shipping lanes. If they brushed King's Landing's river mouth, the capital would ignite from within. Daenerys turned to Arya. Ride hard to Starfall. Signal Jon and Jaime. Muster every water mage, every Snow White, they call them frost singers, any tool that can cool the sea. Dragon and I will shepherd the storms, but we need thaws ready. Then Chen. Arya nodded. Ghost ran beside her as they mounted fresh horses and galloped into the Boneway. Desert winds scorched with embers. King's Landing braced like a held breath. Jon Snow arrived first, his direwolf pup Eskra bounding through unfamiliar alleys. Jaime's host rode in from the Stormlands, banners snapping hush over anxious crowds. Tyrion had cleared the Dragon Pit Plaza, filling cisterns with brine and packing alleys with quarried ice carted from northern lakes by miracle of fast wagons iced in sawdust. Brienne led drills of bucket teams until arms quaked. And in the crypt of Baelor's ruined sept, Cersei oversaw the hammering of massive bronze bells, tuned to specific resonant frequencies calculated by Old Town archmaesters. Sound fights sound, one graybeard insisted. Perhaps these bell peals could disrupt the hum driving the wildfire storms. 3 nights before the storm's predicted landfall, Bran reached the city astride Hodor's son, now a gentle giant with his father's strength. Bran carried a slender sapling freshly cut from Winterfell's heart tree, roots packed in wet moss. He ordered it, planted atop the highest turret of Maegor's Holdfast. Ice inside fire, he said. A living door. Cersei placed her palm upon the white bark, feeling faint pulse like a second heartbeat. Over the warm water channel, Daenerys and her dragon met the first storm. It towered like a moving citadel. Whorls of green flame laced with purple lightning, core throbbing crimson. Steering her dragon into updrafts, she unleashed white-hot exhalations, not to feed, but to carve corridors through the cyclone, guiding it away from coastal villages toward deeper sea. But each blast cost the dragon breath. Each swirl spat sparks that clung to his scales before sputtering out. Night after night, they repeated the dance. Shepherding 5, then 6 storms northwest. The strain tore fresh rents in the dragon's healed wing. On the 6th dawn, the biggest pillar split, birthing 2 smaller vortices. One she guided west to dissipate over barren water, but the other slipped her path, veering due north toward the gullet. Exhausted, dragon faltering, she could not catch it. She turned inland, wings smoky, to warn the city. The green cyclone made landfall at dusk. From King's Landing's ramparts, it looked like an emerald spear driving out of the sea, trailing vapor that ignited fishing nets and curled hulls to slag. Yet the storm met barriers unforeseen. On the river, barges packed with northern ice released their cargo, all but colliding in deliberate breach, creating a slurry island. Frost singers, cloaked wildlings skilled in breath chants Bran had taught, stood atop floating platforms crooning notes so low they rippled the silt. Each note birthed a cold mist that spiraled upward. The wildfire funnel slammed the mist. Flame hissed, sputtered, shrank. Above the city bells tolled a countersong, deep bronze thunder vibrating through masonry, jarring the humming resonance that had vexed horses. Under the broken sept, hidden alchemists flushed salt water through sewer veins, once used for wildfire storage, saturating brick and earth. Still the storm pushed inland, though narrower now. Embers rained on alley roofs, but bucket lines ascended ladders in seamless rhythm, drilled by Brienne. Jaime rode along the riverbank rallying archers whose arrowheads, dipped in brine and bound with leeches, carried freezing alchemical sap into the cyclone's skirts. Then the dragon arrived, trailing ribbons of smoke. He loosed a roar half pain, half fury, diving straight into the maelstrom's eye. For a heartbeat cyclone and beast fused, green tempest hugging char-black scales, lightning dancing bones. Dragonfire erupted, but instead of feeding the storm it met Bran's planted weirwood focus. Pulses through root and branch, channeling surplus heat upward in silver arcs that cracked cloud seams. Rain, cold, heavy, poured suddenly, impossibly, drenching the outer wards. From city walls, thousands watched flame gutter as though drenched by the gods themselves. The cyclone shuddered, twisting into ragged tatters, before vanishing in a roar of scalding steam. Silence followed, save for crackle of dying embers and the cry of gulls. Daenerys landed on the dragon pit terrace, sliding from the saddle before her knees buckled. Cersei and Jon rushed forward. Sel's expected old enmity. Instead, Lion and Wolf braced the Dragon Queen until she stood again. "It is done." "No," Bran corrected from his wheeled perch. "The shard's root still beats. This was only the first breath." Jon nodded grimly. "Then we sail to the furnace itself." Cersei's eyes widened. "Sothorius?" Tyrion exhaled a laugh void of mirth. "Into the belly, then." He turned to his sister. "The realm will need a steward while its circle rides south." Cersei's gaze moved to the heart tree sapling, leaves now tinged with red flame tips. "I will keep the door," she said. "Bring the key back." Preparations spanned merely 5 days. 3 fleets gathered, lion galleys bristling with scorpions, wolf longboats laden with ice blocks packed in sawdust, and sleek dragon flag frigates carrying Tyrell water magi who had once coaxed orchards to bloom after frost. The dragon, wing-bound with silver braces forged by Gendry Baratheon, took perch on a floating platform lashed behind Daenerys' flagship. As they cast off, crowds lined the quays in silence. No cheers, only hands touching hearts. They watched the sails vanish into burnt orange dusk. When the last mast slipped beyond sight, bells tolled again, not warning but prayer. The voyage south wove through seas, still steaming from dissipated storms. Whirlpools littered routes where magma vents upwelled. At night, the horizon glowed dull red, washing faces in torchless light. On open deck, Bran communed with prow figureheads, driftwood carved into direwolf, lion, dragon. He warged seabirds to scout ahead, glimpsing the Black Armada weeks before sails breached mortal sight. Ebon hulls studded with basalt plates formed a wall across their intended course. And behind the Armada, rising like a second horizon, loomed spires of smoke and flame from Sothorios' cracked coast. Vulcan hearts laid bare. Council assembled in candleglow. Daenerys pallid but resolute. Jon clad in salt-stiff furs. Arya sharpening a dagger of frost-glazed steel. Tyrion poring over maps. Princess Arianne representing Dorne. Maester Gorman sniffing burnt parchment. "We cannot flank them," Davos pointed at the map. "Shallow reefs east. Whirlpool trenches west." "Then we pierce their line," Jaime said. His golden hand tapped the table. "Board disable. Move on." Classic wedge. "Then soir." "Black hulls are iron-rooted," Gorman warned. "Axes shatter. Only dragonfire melts that wood." Dragonfire risked feeding flame. All eyes turned to Bran. He traced a rune on the table, 2 circles overlapping. "Water inside fire," he murmured. "Heart within heart. We board one flagship, not to sink, but to seed ice." Arya grinned. "A wolf in the belly." "Precisely," Bran said. "Ice born of Weirwood's sap and Tyrell Frostsong." "Chill the shard at source. The firestorms lose command." Davos nodded slowly. "We sneaked onions under Stannis' blockade once. I can sneak a tree." "Damn." Plans unfurled. A skeleton crew on a Drummond painted pitch black would slip under cover of dragon swoops and scorpion volleys. Arya, Bran, and a cadre of frost singers would deliver a weirwood sapling packed in cryoclay onto the lead dreadship. Bran would channel cold through root into the shard. Meanwhile, main fleets engaged to draw distraction. Night before assault, Arya visited Bran's cabin. He sat eyes distant, listening to waves converse with wood. "You won't walk away whole," she said quietly. Wholeness is wind, Bran replied. Doors remember. He smiled faintly. You taught me that when you chose peace at dagger tip. She squeezed his hand, then pressed her brow to his. The last name on my list was mine. I struck it out. Come back so I can keep it so. Battle dawned under a sky seething mauve. The Black Armada advanced, hulls crackling with internal heat. Some planks glowing red where magma veins pulsed. From deck crevices belched green sparks that coalesced into flaming gulls diving at sails. On triune galleys archers loosed arrows tipped with obsidian vials of ice extract. Each impact hissed a sphere of fog, snuffing fiery gulls mid-plunge. Daenerys and her dragon spiraled overhead, unleashing blue-white flame only in gaps between enemy ships, herding them tighter into a choke that Jaime's wedge exploited. Lion scorpions hurled iron bolts laced with Dornish sunscreen resin, anti-fire alchemy that spread a film over enemy decks, hindering flame spread. In the melee shadow, the black-painted Draman Knight row slipped silent, oars dipped in muffling whale fat. Arya stood at prow. Bran tethered behind her. Ghost crouched low. In the hull, 2 frost singers crooned to the sapling, coaxing frost that rhymed its leaves. Water magi infused the clay pot with drops from a Tyrell glacier phial. They reached the dreadship belly where a hull crack glowed from internal forge. Grappling hooks latched melted edges. Arya vaulted first, daggers flashing. The deck above teemed with acolytes masked in obsidian shards. She danced through them, blades finding joints, ghost among ankles. Bran's bearers hauled him in a sling, following over bodies. They fought to the casket chamber, a hollow hold where the skull-sized shard floated in iron roots above a pool of molten pitch. The shard throbbed, veins linking to black conduits snaking across ribs of the ship. Arya slew the guardians. 2 frost singers planted the sapling in spongy deckwood. Bran placed palms upon white bark. His eyes rolled pale. Song filled the hold, deep, resonant, different from frost chant. It was the voice of the weirnet pouring through Bran's lungs. Notes of snow on dead leaves, of newborn ice forming on still lakes. The shard pulsed faster, frantic. Flames licking deck edges sputtered as frost spread like ivy along planks. Iron roots cracked under sudden chill. Outside, storms above other ships faltered, green funnels dimming. Trine sailors cheered, pressing attack. But within the hold, the ship itself screamed, timbers groaning as thermal shocks splintered beams. Bran felt consciousness splinter too, spirit straddling root and shard. Vision cascaded. Jungles wreathed in vines older than humans. Obsidian beasts slumbering beneath volcanoes. A heart of molten hate, awoken by blood magic to reshape the fragile world of men. He answered with the North's memory. Quiet snows, hearthfires, children's laughter around wheat fields. 2 opposing songs clashed, then spiraled into one chord of balance. Ice flooded the shard, its veins dimmed to black. Bran severed connection just as the hold's floor cracked, magma spewing upward. Arya lunged, catching Bran's sling strap, vaulting across collapsing deck onto a dangling spar. Ghost barked. Frost singers leapt into the sea where rescue skiffs bobbed. The dreadship's prow rose, split, then detonated in a tower of steam as molten core met wave. Across the line, Black Armada hulls faltered, internal flames extinguished. Sails sagged, prows veered without rudder as acolyte captains screamed. Lion galleys pressed, torching disabled ships where necessary, but most crews simply leapt overboard, leaving haunted wrecks. Daenerys' dragon circled above the smoking ruin, trumpeting triumph. Then faltered, wings spasming. For a breath, Arya feared shards had ensnared him too. Instead, the dragon banked south, beating towards Sothorios, instinct drawing him to the volcanic fracture that birthed the fire. Daenerys barely regained control, but realization dawned. To seal the vent fully, they must deliver last ice at source. Trine captains converged. Jon, Jaime, and Tyrion boarded the seafoam. Bran, pale as bleached bone, summoned strength to speak. "Seed the root," he whispered. "Ice crown him upon lava throat." The final plan formed swiftly. Dragon would bear Bran and Sapling over the vent. Frost Singers would anchor him on deck. Lion galleys ramming disabled dreadships would create a barricade to hold back any surviving black hulls. Daenerys helped Bran into a saddle basket bound between her and the dragon's arching spine. "If we fail," she told Jon, "hold your circle. Doors matter." Jon grasped her wrist. "And if you succeed, the realm owes you dawn." She smiled, weary but fierce. "Keep it warm." They flew south over boiling shoals where fish floated belly up, scales tinged green. Ahead, Sothorios' coast writhed with smoke columns. The great vent sat inland, a gash glowing white-orange. As the dragon descended, updrafts seared scales. Daenerys felt saddle rings redden. She guided him to hover above the vent's edge. Bran's bearers swung the sapling over, roots trailing frost. Frost Singers on the Seafoam's deck miles away raised their hymn. Wind carried echoes up the chasm. Bran laid bleeding palm on trunk, channeling final reservoir of cool. The sapling's leaves burst with hoarfrost, then shattered into snowdust cascading onto magma. Where each flake landed, lava crusted, hardening into black glass. The vent roared, trying to expel heat, but frost pressed deeper. A trembling rippled the rim. Daenerys felt the dragon lift higher instinctively. Beneath them, the lava pool congealed, heart sealing shut, green belches subsiding to sullen glow. Silence followed. Only crackle of cooling stone broke the stillness. Bran slumped unconscious. Daenerys turned the dragon north. Behind them, Sothorios' smoke columns dulled to gray. Firestorms forming above sea collapsed, robbed of origin. Across thousands of leagues, Stoneheart shards dimmed, some shattering, some merely turning dull and cold. Months later, the fleet sailed back up the Blackwater to a city wreathed in banners of blue summer. Cersei greeted them at the quay, tears shining as Jon carried Bran from the gangplank. The boy man opened his eyes, smiled faintly at the heart tree sapling planted now in a great marble bowl beside the dock. Green again, new shoots sprouting. Arya embraced Sansa, who had ridden south to meet them, whispering that her list remained empty. The realm mourned lost sailors, raised statues for Frost Singers who perished when an ice barge shattered under rogue Flamegull dive. But it celebrated louder. Poets sang of the voyage of balance. Potters glazed plates with intertwined triumph sigils. Children played at taming storm cyclones with snowballs. Cersei convened a gathering beneath the round crown mast. Lion, wolf, dragon, all present. No speeches, only joined hands, silence honoring living and dead, and a shared vow that should any realm, continent, or dark sea ever birth flame without mercy, Westeros would answer with doors, not walls, first. Years passed. The dragon's wing scars faded to pale silver. He nested often atop the Heart Tree Tower, warming fledgling ravens, Bran trained as messengers. Daenerys founded the Circle Academy at Old Town, where alchemists, Frost Singers, and maesters studied magic as science bound by ethics. Tyrion retired the hand's chain, replaced it with a small copper circle worn on his breast, symbol of stewardship rather than command. Cersei walked the city incognito some nights, listening for the old tremor of wildfire drums. She heard instead flute music drifting from taverns, where Summer Island sailors traded stories beside wildling carvers, selling ice sculpture charms. She would smile, breathe the saltwood air, and think of the boy she once wept for, the children she once lost to her own fire. In their memory she kept lanterns along the Blackwater lit with cool blue flame, alchemical mix discovered by Tyrell scholars, burning without heat, symbol that flame could illuminate without destroying. On the 20th midsummer, after the Triune formed, Bran summoned the circle to the Godswood, transplanted into the dragon pit. Beneath petals of crimson and new white, he announced his final vision, a time approaching when he must pass beyond the Weirnet's farthest leaf, to keep watch upon realms unseen. He would leave behind no king, no monarch, only the echo of his counsel. Remember the circle, keep the door open. That night, the three regents stood beneath the heart tree. Cersei's hair threaded silver, Joan's streaked with ash from distant hearths, Daenerys' braid draped over her shoulder like a pale banner. They watched Bran slip into reverie, eyes milk-white, reflecting moon. Somewhere above, dragons, old and young, wild and tamed, circled the city, wings murmuring peace. Now and again those wings beat harder, stirring wind ripples that whispered across rooftops, reminding every soul awake that night how fragile and precious silence could be. In the hush after the last wing beat faded, Cersei spoke. We kept our realm by choosing doors. And learned that circles have no sharp edges, Jon added. Daenerys rested a hand on the heart tree. And that fire, when loved, can warm instead of burn. They linked hands. No oaths, only quiet trust. The city slept beneath them, unconquered, but forever changed. In alleyways, children dreamed of dragons and wolves playing tag around lion fountains. In the alchemist's guild hall, wildfire cauldrons lay empty, replaced by archives of tempered glass. On far northern hills, white harvest moon lit rows of grain grown for both frost and sun. Within the tree a last pulse beat, a farewell from Bran as he drifted beyond. Petals quivered, then stilled, catching starlight on dewy veins. And the realm breathed, doors wide, circles unbroken, hearts ready for whatever new dawn might rise beyond the edge of familiar seas. Ah, Kandi. Ah. The heat of late summer lingered like invisible silk over King's Landing, a hush that folded itself into alley and archway, and clung to the collars of men who scarcely remembered the last ill wind that had swept through their city. The Trine regents had grown accustomed to such breathless intervals, stretches of quiet during which it seemed the world itself leaned forward to listen for the crack of some distant fault line. But the silence that followed Bran Stark's passing into the deeper currents of the Weirnet was something stranger. Not the simple lull of an exhausted realm, but the hush of a gap newly opened in the chain that ringed their fragile peace. The night after his departure, Cersei found herself drifting along the outer parapet of Maegor's Holdfast, as though drawn by moonlight alone. In her lapel she had pinned a sprig of red weirwood leaf. Now and again she tapped it, half expecting some answering pulse from the tree's pale heartwood far above. None came. Bran's roots remained, but Bran himself was gone, and the queen could not coax comfort out of leftover sap. From her high vantage, she watched lamp-bearers move along the lanes between the Dragon Pit gardens, trimming wicks of the cool blue lanterns that ringed the Blackwater Gate. Below, the river mirrored constellations so clearly that it seemed a second sky lay hidden beneath the water. 3 silhouettes strolled the quay. Tyrion, tail of his summer coat trailing dust. Gendry Baratheon, fresh from yet another forge night. And young Lyanna Mormont, whose face still bore the flush of sparring with the gold cloaks until dusk. Their voices rose faintly, an argument about alloy ratios devolving into a wager about whether a shield could be cast thin as parchment without losing its bite. The brightness in their tones, the casual ease with which they disagreed, felt like a small candle pressed against Cersei's breast. Life indeed continued. And yet Bran's absence gnawed at her like a phantom ache. Behind her, the hinges of a lesser door stirred. Jaime stepped out, his footsteps soft from habit formed in darker days, when every corridor demanded caution. He carried 2 goblets. She took one and sipped. Small ale with a curl of lemon rind, the drink they used to share on garden walks when Tommen was still a boy chasing cats along the Rose Walk. He set his arm along the marble rail and studied her carefully. He did not die, Jaime said at last. He moved. To where I cannot follow, she answered. No one ever followed Bran, he reminded her. Not in body, at least. Even in Winterfell I never quite caught him. She traced condensation upon her cup. When he was in the city he would tell me what the sparrows whispered, what the fishwives caught out of season. He taught me to listen for the hinge creak of chance before chance arrived. She breathed out slowly. Now I am left alone with ordinary hearing. Jaime smiled. In my experience your ordinary is others' extraordinary. Besides, he left signs. Roots, leaves, ravens. He never closed a door behind him. She looked up sharply. The words echoed Bran's own final counsel. She nodded and pressed the thought deep. Perhaps then, a door remained to be opened, one forged not by gifts of sight, but by sheer will to notice the world as it was. And if she lacked Bran's boundless gaze, she still possessed an unshakable memory of every cost they had paid to reach this moment of quiet. The next morning she summoned parchment, wax, and the swan feather quills Bran preferred when scribing counsel to distant watchtowers. She set herself a task, to compose a ledger not of coin or grain, but of promise, an accounting of every vow that bound the Round Crown to its people, large or small. It would become her map of vigilance in Bran's stead, where waterworks had yet to reach hillside hovels, where grain routes still faltered along bandit-heavy tracks, where veteran pensions arrived 3 days late each quarter. As she wrote, a pattern formed. Little eddies of neglect that, unchecked, could whirl into storms worse than any sorceress cyclone. When she finished the first folio, she set it aside and began another. By dusk of the second day her chambers smelled of hot wax and sleepless resolve. Daenerys entered without announcement, silent as bird song on tile. Her silver hair, lately worn loose, save a single braid for the lost brother she had forgiven too late, caught the candlelight in soft luminance. She stood over the half-stacked folios and read the topmost line. 3 barrels of ice-mint oil never reached the midwives' quarter. Daenerys murmured. That medicine cools fever in newborns, does it not? Cersei nodded. A clerk filed them under Warstock in Iron Gate Keep. No ill will, only habit. But habit can kill as surely as malice. Then no. Daenerys considered this, then pulled up a chair. Let me scribe half, she offered. I am still queen of one part of this circle after all. She smiled at Cersei's arched brow. Besides, observational discipline soothes the mind. When I tally dragons in my dreams, I sleep better. Together they wrote. Ink scratched. Horns blew at distant watch changes, and the hush of shared purpose replaced sleepless worry. By candle's gutter, they had filled 3 more folios. When they parted, Daenerys paused at the doorway. I have felt him too, she admitted quietly, like passing through door hangings still swaying from someone else's motion. Your hearing may feel ordinary, but the wind tells you something all the same. Cersei did not answer. She merely pressed palm to her chest. And Daenerys understood. Weeks slipped into early autumn. Leaves along the city's transplanted godswood blushed crimson at the tips where frost chants had cooled them too quickly. In the coastal marshes south of Blackwater, heron fishermen reported shoals of silver-bright fish no one could name, washed north by the collapsed Sotheriosi currents. Tyrion dispatched a team from the Circle Academy to study them. They discovered the fish's flesh had delicate striations that glimmered pale green under torchlight, trace echoes perhaps of wildfire energy diffused across hemispheres. Yet cooked carefully, the fish proved safe and remarkably nourishing. Fleets soon netted them by the hundreds, and a new trade in silverfire eels sprang up between Dorne and Gulltown. Jon arrived from the north one dawn with a single raven feather bound to his cloak's clasp. For Bran, he said when Cersei noticed. He bore cargo as well. A newly fashioned blade forged from a melted shard of stoneheart, tempered with castle black ice. Gendry had named it Doorkeeper, a thick-spined longsword that shimmered like coal under starlight, rimed in frost. Jon placed it in the Round Crown armory not for war, though it would cleave as fiercely as Valyrian steel, but as symbol. The realm would guard against any sealed flame rising again beneath their feet. Arya came south too, ghosting into Maegor's garden one night, by dropping from a balcony as though she, not Bran, owned the sky. She listened to Cersei's ledgers and nodded approval, but insisted on adding notes of her own. Unspecified rings of spies she had scattered along the free cities. Quiet watchers who traded birdsong for news of slave pens, reopening, or weapon profit lords sniffing out the next vacuum of power. Cersei, who once would have bristled at a spy network not her own, merely unfolded fresh parchment. Write them in code I can learn, she said, and we'll both sleep easier. For a small while this too was the pattern. Lists, amendments, overlapping circles, and the persistent sense that Bran, though absent, nudged each meeting of quill and ink. Late harvest brought new portent. A raven from the stepstones, one of Arya's, arrived with blood on its talons, and a single bronze coin clutched in beak. Upon the coin was a sigil thought extinct, a kraken clenched around a burning heart. Euron's bastard, Axel Storm, had been executed by mutinying captains who now styled themselves the Grim Flood. Their proclamation claimed grievance. The Triune's ban on Ironborn raiding robbed them of livelihood. They would take instead Tithe in Flame, beginning with cargo ships bound from Sunspear to Old Town. Already, 2 charred hulls washed ashore at Cape Wrath. In council, Cersei spread the coin before the regents. "We break raiders, or we break trade," she said. Jaime volunteered a lion fleet at once, but Daenerys shook her head. "Naval iron will not root out this sprout," she said. "The Grim Flood worships flame, but not mine. They desire spectacle, martyrdom. If we sink their reavers, survivors will claim holy drowning and swell the legend." Tyrion twirled the coin. "A different lure, then. Give them plunder without blood. Bait them shallow, yank the chain." Arya's eyes sparkled. "A ghost ship." Jon frowned. "Ain, Patol." So the plan was born. A trio of grain hulks retired from Reach service would be fitted with false metal chests, loaded not with coin but with amphorae of seawater laced by Tyrell frost singers to explode outward in a frigid burst when shattered. The hulks would sail slow, sails patched, holds leaking rumor of hidden Stoneheart fragments. The Grim Flood would seize them, attempt to crack amphorae in triumph, and trigger torrents of ice spray that would snuff torches, freeze ropes, and leave deck timbers slick. Lion Marines lurking in submerged barges would then board under cover of dragon-carried fog, binding raiders in chains before a single blade drew breath for war cry. The risk. Such precision required the dragon himself to conjure fog and silent gale, the very sight of which might elevate pirate fear into hero worship if any escaped to tell it. Yet Cersei judged the bargain acceptable. Better a legend of dragon cunning than a thriving cult of burned corpses. Preparations took a moon's turn. During that time, whispers reached them of stranger phenomena. Forest pools in the stormlands forming perfect concentric rings of ice at dawn. Flocks of starlings migrating north in mid-autumn. Shepherds hearing a distant keening at dusk that set lambs bleating in panic. Bran would have parsed these omens. Absent his counsel, they traced back each anomaly and found a common thread. The keening matched precisely the door frequency of the bronze bells used against wildfire storms. Somehow, the bell's harmonic had seeped into the roots of the land, resonating in places where sandstone met granite, where shallow aquifers laced with ancient dragonglass fragments lay like forgotten capillaries. As though the world, relieved of its fiery fever, exhaled, but had not yet readjusted to its own heartbeat. Maester Gorman theorized the planet itself was a drum. Strike one head, the other vibrated. The Triune's bell wallop had quelled the storms, but rattled deep sanctums, where old energies slept. Those energies now stirred, roaming in harmless ripples. So far harmless. With care, they might fade. With negligence, they could amplify in unpredictable ways. Cersei added a fresh ledger. Ring sights, frequency monitors, weirwood sapling placement. Quiet guardians for the spaces Bran once watched. She tasked Tyrion and Daenerys to craft a new code of resonance. No bell across the realm would toll without record of pitch, rhythm, and purpose, lest the land answer unexpectedly. The alchemists bristled. They loved their secrecy. But Tyrion counter-bribed them with research charters for cool green luminous dyes derived from the silverfire fish. Vanity won, and the bells fell under census. The day of the ghost ship gambit dawned with low fog courtesy of Daenerys Dragon. Hulks drifted into the straits. Grim Flood corsairs, spotted by Arya at Cliff Outpost, descended in black-sailed swift cutters. They swarmed the lead hulk, laughter echoing across still water. Amphorae shattered, frost-burst billowed. Echoing roars of shock turned to shrieks as decks iced, masts sagged. From beneath, lion marines rose like mythical kappa, grappling hulls. Within heartbeats, pirates lay trussed, lips blue. Only one cutter managed flight, fleeing north with a single oarsman pounding frigid water. Arya, perched atop Second Hulk's mainmast, nocked an arrow. But Daenerys stayed her hand. "Let him carry tale of overwhelming chill," she said. "Let the sea itself become the monster they fear." 2 days later, the free ports buzzed with accounts of a grim flood martyr, raving about a snow-breathing serpent that devoured flame and spat chains. Recruitment dried up overnight. The regents reconvened. Tyrion raised a goblet. "To doors again, not walls. We shut them softly this time." But Cersei drummed fingers. "Each tremor we answer spawns new ripples. If bells can stir stone marrow, what might unmeasured secrets do?" Qyburn once kept laboratories beneath the keep still sealed. Then? They resolved then on a realm-wide audit. Every hidden workshop, vault, crypt, or mage's library would declare its artifacts, or face removal. Jaime offered Lannister inspectors, Jon, Stark rangers, Daenerys, unsullied logistic scribes. The program, dubbed the Lantern Registry, soon uncovered relics once lost. A cracked Valyrian flute rumored to summon gales, a mirror of obsidian said to reflect futures, a powder that when burned produced silent blue flame. Each relic earned classification, not banned, but catalogued, studied, understood. The work was endless. Yet in that endlessness grew a new breed of stewardship. Youngsters apprenticed at the Circle Academy learned to file resonance charts alongside sword drills, to weigh ethics with the same rigor as steel. Older generals found themselves teaching village councils how to mend ice-dammed sluices before instructing levy formations. Slowly, the habit of doors permeated the realm. By midwinter, Cersei's ledgers filled 3 oak chests. She set them in the round crown vault alongside doorkeeper. Jon added a slim volume of northern songs whose tonal range soothed stone. Daenerys placed a dragon-scale flute tuned to frost pitch. Tyrion left a single silverfire coin, proof that flame could nourish. Every moon's turn they opened the vault, read one page at random and asked, "Does this promise still stand?" If ever the answer drifted toward no, they sent riders. Years later, when a comet of shimmering violet crossed the night sky, small folk gathered in fields and market squares to marvel. They expected at least one regent to declare omen and decree. Instead, a proclamation in plain parchment arrived by raven at every holdfast. The world sings. Tonight, she sings beauty rather than warning. Look up. Remember the fire quenched and the doors unbroken. Keep watch, keep wonder, keep kindness. No signature, just the small emboss of intertwined lion, wolf, dragon. Children stared at the sky until necks ached. Farmers who once eyed strange lights with dread now watched in quiet gratitude. And in King's Landing, Cersei lingered alone on the same parapet where long ago she had tasted the tremor of wildfire drums. She closed her eyes, listened, and heard only roofs creaking, gulls crying, distant laughter drifting from wharf taverns. Ordinary hearing, but sufficient. She thought then of Bran's absent gaze, and all the doors he had left cracked for them. She understood at last that filling the gap he left was not her burden alone. It was the rhythm of many hearts beating in complement. Tyrion's restless quill, Arya's unseen scouts, Daenerys' skyward watch, Jon's steadfast honor, Jaime's even stride beside her own. The circle held because each leaned into the vacancy without trying to fill it, allowing the space to remind them of vigilance. At the edge of the balcony, a vine of dusk-bloomed jasmine, coaxed from Dorne by Tyrell's soil song, had twined around the marble rail. Its flowers, white by day, now shimmered faint teal, absurd color born of silverfire fertilizer. Cersei plucked one, threading it behind her ear. She raised a silent toast to the unseen boy who had taught her to listen. Then she turned back toward the tower stairs, where torches awaited trimming, where ledgers awaited another line, where dawn would ask its customary question. Does the door remain open? She would answer as ever, yes, and see that it stayed so. Ay, ka, na. A drizzle as fine as dusk smoke drifted over the harbor of Old Town, softening the citadel's proud lines into muted ivory and jade. Lanterns glimmered along the whispering walk, where barges from Dorne eased their hulls against barnacled piers. The quaymen worked without shouting. Sound carried strangely in the river air, as though every clatter of rope or slap of oar passed first through a gauze of listening silence. On the innermost dock, a single black skiff bobbed almost unnoticed, its sail furled tight, its lone passenger gazing up at the high tower's pale crown. Tala Tarly drew her cloak tighter, feeling the flecks of mist bead on her lashes. 12 years amongst scrolls had not inured her to weather. But the letter she carried, sealed in red wax, stamped with a wolf's head twined around a dragon and a lion, afforded no delay. All the realm's unspoken fears, she suspected, were folded between those fragile fibers, waiting for the firm voice of Archmaester Anderley to give them shape. She loosened the fastening at her breast and reread the superscription. For hands, for lords, for small folk. An account of resonant currents within the land and sea. Bran's absence, it seemed, had opened more than philosophical chasms. It left phenomena to be weighed, timed, charted. Tala had measured the deviations herself. Sun-shadow drifts half a finger wider than equinox allowed. Ring gneiss that formed on still ponds even while dragonflies hatched 2 months early. Gemstones that fogged their facets only when certain bells tolled in the capital. The realm turned quiet miracles into commonplace gossip. But the realm, she suspected, did not grasp how many miracles could blur into catastrophe. She started up the stone steps toward the river gate. Halfway, she paused at the hush of oiled hinges behind her. An old woman with hair white as parchment rose from a bench, leaning on a cane of polished weirwood. Her eyes were pale green, her gown a seamstress drab, yet she carried herself with a gravity that chilled Tala's breath. "Daughter of Horn Hill," the woman said. "Voice a reed in wind. The chain you seek is broken tonight." Tala swallowed. "You know me?" "In part. Whole enough." The woman's gaze flicked toward the high tower. "Your Archmaester runs geometry on echoes. He thinks to pin each tremor like a butterfly. But a wave pinned still beats its wings." "Then Chow." Tala tightened her grip on the sealed letter. "If you carry counsel, mistress, deliver it to the conclave. I am but messenger." "One messenger among many," the woman murmured. She reached into her sleeve and produced a pebble of black glass, threaded by a single crimson vein. The shard throbbed with a faint pulse. "Give him that, then. One answer from the roots. Tell him the stone yet sings in the deep places." Fear chilled Tala's bones. Stoneheart was stilled. The vent sealed. Sealed, yes. Silence, never. The stranger placed the shard upon the stair's lip, stepped back, and touched 2 fingers to her brow. "Doors open both ways. Child of Hornhill. Keep watch in your city of books." She turned and vanished into the rain-soft dark, leaving Tala restless on the stair, torn between duty to schedule and dread of omen. At last she stooped, lifted the shard with the sleeve of her cloak. Heat pulsed faintly, neither scalding nor cold, and slipped it into a waxed pouch. No flame, she told herself, only memory. Yet memory, she knew, could blaze brighter than fire. In King's Landing a week later, Tyrion Lannister found the first thin crack in Cersei's new ledger of promises. It opened not in granaries or watchtowers, but in song. A troop of mummers newly arrived from Lys performed in the Candlely Court, their ballad a weaving of reed pipe and water drum. Midway through the 3rd stanza, every lantern within 20 feet blinked out as one. The wicks burned still. The blue alchemical flames had not died, they stood invisible, emitting no light until the final chord concluded. Then lanterns flared again. Cheers followed. Baffled applause. Novelty. The crowd thought. Yet when Tyrion questioned the performers, they swore no trick, no hidden powders. The song, they said, merely honored river spirits who danced with starlight. Daenerys listened with head cocked, as though feeling for echoes. Jon frowned at the ledger of resonance kept by Master Bellfounder Selwyn. On page 62, Selwyn had scribbled a new notation: pulse slaps between note of high G and lantern flux in Candlely Court. Unexplained. Cersei placed a finger over the line. Music is the one door we have yet to measure, she said. Tyrion pursed lips. Shall we outlaw melody next? No, Daenerys answered first. We tune it. So they summoned a Circle Academy's youngest prodigies, choristers taught to see sound as color, to draft harmonies in chalk on black slate. Over evenings, lit by flickering silver fire hearths, those singers mapped intervals that coaxed subtle shivers in lantern glass. One pattern repeated. A perfect fifth descending into a minor third caused blue flame to vanish. Reverse the cadence. Flame brightened beyond standard glow. Resonant suppression, Gorman Tyrell announced. Like blowing across a bottle's mouth to still the liquid inside. Jon scratched frost-rimmed stubble. If a song can quench alchemical light, what else dims to unseen note? Arya arrived fresh from Braavosi coasts with rumor of fishermen hearing whale song that stilled the phosphor eels, leaving dark hollows in the surf. She brought sketches, ringfish with eyes clouded white, pulsing faint glow along their spines. Perhaps, she mused, the sea itself hummed new chords. The council faced a realm where every day might birth some gentle marvel, and each marvel might hide threat if misunderstood. Tyrion spoke for measured patience. Jaime argued steel drill must stay sharp regardless. Daenerys advocated deeper listening. Cersei insisted on prepared remedy. Together, they drafted Words of Balance, a treatise urging lordlings and free folk to record anomalies, to share them without fear of witch hunt, to view wonder as both gift and warning. While scribes copied the document, a new ripple arrived, snowflakes drifting across Sunfield Orchard though sun climbed high. Each flake melted on warm leaves, yet left a trace of frost that neither thawed nor harmed the fruit. At dusk, orcharders found apples skin bright and cool to touch, their juice tasting faintly of mint. Alewives brewed cider from the crop. Patrons swore it cleared headache in a sip. Such miracles charmed small folk, but tension frayed soldier nerves unused to battles without blades. Gold cloaks, chasing cut purses, now found themselves wading through pockets of sudden fog, or startled by street stones that rang like bronze when boot heels struck a certain way. Frustration bred talk. Some guards wished for the old clarity of foes easily named. To them, Cersei personally delivered casks of Sunfield mint cider, sharing cups in guardhouses, speaking softly of swords held steady under stranger skies. She told them vigilance meant liking the questions as well as the answers, a lesson she herself learned too late. The sergeants listened, some grudging, some grateful. After she left, a few toasted the queen who drank with rank and file. Beyond the sunset sea, Bran Stark drifted in root and ocean, far from flesh, his consciousness a weave of tide and tree fiber. He sensed the realm's tentative song, bells enabling stone to sigh, dragon wings stirring jet stream, human hearts drumming hopes and knots of fear. From time to time he brushed those currents, nudging small eddies, guiding a raven to drop a silver feather before a shepherd just as a cliff face cracked, warning him to move flock, wending wind atop a stepstone reef so a corsair's torch sputtered, preventing a powder magazine from igniting. Each nudge cost him a price, memory thinning, form dissolving. Yet he endured, anchored by one thought. The doors he left ajar needed gentle pushes now, not wide shoves. Deep beneath ocean's crust, he encountered a slumbering pulse, older than Lightbringer's forging. It resonated in the same minor third that doused King's Landing lanterns. He tasted its shape, a belly of molten crystal broken ages past, now stirring to the chorus of bells. If unchecked, it could birth geysers of searing glass across every fault line. To warn the living, he reached upward through coral forests, coaxing tiny shards toward surface currents. Each shard, a silent messenger glowing faint crimson, harmless yet uncanny, so watchers might begin to ask why the sea bled color. On a starlit night, a Taroshi pearl diver surfaced clutching one such shard. He carried it to the College of Mariners, setting off a wave of study that soon rippled to Old Town. There Talatarli stood beside Archmaester Anderly when the Taroshi envoy laid shard beside the pebble given her by the stranger. The two pieces pulsed, tonal twins. Anderly's face drained as implications converged. Tala spoke first. "We must summon the Round Crown." Jon and Arya rode south together, direwolf and shadow combining like winter and night. Along the King's Road they witnessed more wonders. Fox kits chasing wisps of light that floated like dandelion seed. Dew forming on meadow spears in spiral patterns, reminiscent of door glyphs Bran once drew. Arya collected sketches. Jon collected silences, storing them for council. At Old Town's dock of rumination, Arianne Martell arrived by sea alongside Daenerys and her dragon, who curled atop the Hightower spire, eyes half closed, apparently listening to the city's many chimes. Cersei traveled with Tyrion by barge up the Honeywine, Jaime riding escort along the banks. They converged in the Starry Sept's oldest hall, stone ribs echoing layered songs of distant choirs practicing for autumn feast. Between them lay Anderly's table draped in velvet, upon which pulsed the paired shards. Anderly explained his findings. Each shard's resonance corresponded exactly to a frequency produced when bronze bells nearby tolled at quarter-hour intervals. The energy seemed to ride waves of air and water, awakening dormant crystal pockets deep beneath seabeds. Most pockets remained sealed. Some seeped small shards. A rare few might vent dangerous surges. Anderly believed the sealed Sothurio's vent had redistributed its heat as waveform possibilities, potential seeking symmetry elsewhere. Daenerys frowned, recalling the exhaustion of guiding flame storms. "We cannot chase every pocket. We must lull the pulse to rest." "And now," Anderly suggested a vast countertone. A deep, fundamental sung across the realm, by instruments tuned to the land's own breathing. He called it the root key. To discover it, one needed libraries of data. Pitch logs from every bell, peals from every smith's hammer, chants from every frost singer. Tyrion grimaced. A symphony of maintenance. "How many players?" "All," Anderly replied simply. Cersei lifted chin. "Then we learn the key and teach it." Thus began the great measuring. Ravens flew with pitch pipes and wax tablets. Village crones beat cooking pots, recording how water trembled. Smithies hammered bars while scribes marked resonance. Children in mountain hamlets piped reeds across valleys, timing echoes. The realm became an orchestra tuning before unknown overture. Within Maegor's holdfast, Daenerys and Tyrion built a resonance loom, a ring of bronze gongs, silver strings, crystal cylinders, each tuned by Gendry's microlathes. When struck in sequence, the loom captured and graphed overtones on stretched parchment, coated with luminous squid ink. Night after night, Arya and Lyanna Mormont took turns plucking strings while Tyrion scrawled lines. Jaime timed pulses with a sandglass. Cersei hovered, hearing patterns even when charts baffled others. One dawn they discerned a motif repeated across dozens of village reports. 3 tones, low higher by a perfect fourth, then dropping to a minor second below the first. When played, lantern flames shimmered but did not dim. Shards within the loom glowed steady bluish, not crimson. Anderly, summoned north, declared the motif likely the root key's heart. The regents decided. At the next full moon, every bell tower, forge and hall across Westeros, would sound those 3 notes simultaneously at sundown. Traveling scribes dispersed to teach the interval. 2 hums and a sigh, peasants called it. Choirmasters drilled novices. Shepherds tuned horns. Smiths chilled hammers to ring true. Full moon rose, swollen like a glass shield. Along ridges flickered beacon fires ready to cue timing. In King's Landing the Queen, the Wolf King, and the Dragon Regent stood beneath the Tower of Hand, loom arrayed before them. Tyrion lifted a baton. At his nod, a page struck the loom's deepest gong. Across the realm the first note thrummed, low, mournful, yet warm. Second note soared a fourth higher, hopeful loft. The third slipped down. A breath exhaled. In taverns and forests and keep courtyards, mouths parted, throats hummed, an entire land breathing trinote. Within moments, lantern flames elongated into tall blue spears. Stone heart shards pulsed azure, veins cooling. Off the shield islands, ocean steam hissed as ringfish luminescence dimmed to calm. In Old Town, Tala Tarly watched the Hightower's white flame flare green for a heartbeat, then settle to steady gold. Yet at the peak of resonance, a wrong chord stabbed like broken glass. Somewhere, a bell clanged sharp. Half step too high. Another followed, then another. A cascade of irregular chimes, pirate bells on a captured drammen charging into the sunset sea. The dissonance rippled back, warping the root key into discord. Before scribes could signal stop, a roar split the night. The dragon atop the holdfast reared, wings snapping, eyes blazing crimson. Lanterns shattered glass like rain, wild shards flinging sparks. Daenerys mounted without saddle, launching skyward to steady him. Jon drew doorkeeper, blade icing, planting point in marble to anchor swirling gusts. Arya sprang to parapet, scanning horizon for new threat. Tyrion saw Cersei blanch. She alone recognized the bell pitch, the custom tritone of the old Red Keep sept, dismantled after the war. Only one man kept those cracked bells, Qyburn's renegade apprentice, Baeliron Foyle, exiled years before and rumored to have joined the grim remnant. Daenerys wrestled dragon rage by singing low Valyrian lullaby. The minor third fell into place, smoothing fury. Above, the bell dissonance faded as pirate ship likely sank beneath its own molten deck, shaken by resonance. Calm returned, fragile. The regents conferred swift. The root key worked, but sabotage could twist it. They would need warders at sea and land, keepers of pitch to guard each toll. The office of Bellward was born, open to any sworn who could carry tune and report variants. In coming moons, Bellwards roamed with tuning forks carved from weirwood and silverfire ore, checking bells, retuning where decay warped tone. They taught children to whistle the tri-note before sleeping, weaving the root key into lullabies and harvest songs. Over time, lanterns ceased their quivering. Shards dulled to inert jet. Ringfish resumed normal glow, though Sunfield apples kept their mint aftertaste, a benign gift. Cersei's ledgers noted promises kept. Flame tamed, bells tuned, roads safe. Yet promises never slept. She wrote new pages for Bellward provisions, for seizing monitoring, for training in resonance law. When at last she closed the third oak chest and locked it beneath Round Crown Hall, she felt Bran's echo. Satisfied hum in Floorstone. That winter she rode north to Winterfell with Jaime, no retinue but a single squire. They laid a wreath of blue fireflowers at the heart tree, thanked the absent boy, and spoke vows to keep listening. Snow fell, whisper soft, and when it touched the wreath, it fizzed to tiny sparks, pebbles of light, harmless, dancing on white. Cersei and Jaime watched until snow covered sparks, returning world to hush. South again in early spring they traveled the King's Road incognito, sleeping in shepherd crofts, tasting mint apples with cask-fire cider. One night, outside a mill near Maidenpool, they heard children humming the root key cadence while skipping stones across a moonlit pond. Each stone splash birthed 3 ripples. The ripples met, overlapped into quiet rings and vanished. Cersei smiled at Jaime through the dusk. "The doors stay open," she whispered. "They do," he agreed, lacing gloved fingers through hers. Beyond, lanterns glowed steady blue, and above, stars scattered across a sky no longer waiting for the crack of unseen faults, but still alive with quiet wonder.